What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Men's Table. I will introduce myself first and allow these gentlemen to do the same. My name is Jeff St. James, aka Ask a Brother Podcast. Why don't you guys let everybody know what's going on?
Yes, indeed. I am Dave Anderson, the business bully, the person that says the uncomfortable things, and is the 23-time best-selling author, latest book, The Real Black Agenda, available right now at therealblackagenda.com. And if you order it during the Men's Table, you will also get the audio book and the workbook and the ebook. Why? Because Dave cares about you.
Nice. And what about you, Darn?
Yeah, my name is Dar McPherson, best known as... Sorry, that is my son in the background.
Came to sound like you had to cuss a little bit.
Yeah, you can tell. There's one thing about your wife, boy. You can tell you're going live at this time, and they wait till 10 minutes after that time to start getting the kids. Yeah, but yeah, my name is Dar. Obviously, I'm a husband, father of two young boys, young men.
Yes.
Veteran of the military. Also a well-known in the space. Most people know me as Bruiser, but yeah, just short.
Cool.
Appreciate having me.
Listen, man, Obsidian might be joining us pretty soon, but we also mentioned that we're going to be having a special guest on tonight. But before we welcome him in, if you could do us a favor, please like and subscribe to our platforms and channels on our different respective pages, whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, etc., Rumble included. I think Obsidian has a Rumble page. And to start, listen, guys, everybody that's going to be coming in, welcome. Thank you guys for coming through. We've appreciated just your recommendations, your feedback. We're going to be trying to build this and actually be very, very soon letting y'all know about some in-person activities that we're going to be lined up and planning. We're not going to say too much more because we don't want to spoil it, but just know that we're going to be having some surprises when it comes to the Men's Table, including tonight's guest. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage for the first time, our first actual guest to the Men's Table, Professor Dr. Tommy Curry. What's going on, sir?
Yes, sir.
What's up, sir? How you doing?
Yes, sir.
Well, morning in Scotland.
Listen, I'm going to say this just to kind of start us off. I think this kind of makes us a little bit official. How y'all feel about it, fellas, in terms of like we got a real guest going on now? Like,
listen, I feel like we're coming up in the world. Listen, first of all, we are #1 in Jacksonville, North Carolina. We are very, very happy about that. And I'm happy that Professor Tommy Curry is here to give us some legitimacy because, you know, I don't know half the things that come out of my mouth because they sound like they're coming out of my ass. So I'm thrilled about this. Real excited to have you here.
Boss.
Thanks.
He's starting as a boss. Hey,
No, like when you talk out of your ass. What is wrong with y'all? See, this is what I'm talking about. The level of immaturity. No, pause. The level of immaturity from these people, Professor Curry, I apologize in advance. They do not know how to act or conduct themselves in front of companies. So you got to wade through all of that. Plus this feminism with the audacity falling off the bone. I apologize in advance. I'm the serious one, but
all right.
And of course, last but not least, Mr. Obsidian himself. What's going on, brother? About to get his microphone in.
So the glasses come on.
Oh yeah. So I'm gonna eyeball some of these comments real quick just to see and show a couple of them. So guys, if you're currently watching, make sure that you send to as many people as possible, 2, 3, 4, even 5 people. Definitely like it with whichever stream that you're watching it from. And most importantly, guys, if you want us to kind of take note and definitely not miss your comment or a question that you might have, feel free to hit that super chat button for sure. So Dwight, Dilla, welcome. Who else we got? Mike L. I should have put that one on. Big Mo, what's happening? Mr. GQ, yeah, man. So if you're in the building, let us know where you're watching from. And like I said, feel free to hit that super chat button to kind of support this particular brand and product that we're actually starting to put out there. Self Sun, thank you as well. Inspirational Truth, welcome. Yeah, man. So we're excited. Everybody, we're already about to clear 100+ people watching concurrently. So guys, like we said before, make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe, and definitely send to 2, 3, 4, or even 5 people. Who else we got? Noah's in the building. Chasing Grace, welcome, man. A lot of people got popcorn out, so that means they must be expecting something good. That means the standards are here. So guys, if we want to get this to 2 or even 300+, all you got to do is each of you that's watching, send it to 2 or 3 people. And just like that, it's going to jump from 100 to 200 to even 300 people concurrently watching. So for starters, fellas, man, we are going to be discussing a critique and just general feedback of the state of feminism, how it's kind of manifested presently, and depending on our time frame, we may even delve into discussing the same when it comes to the manosphere. So obviously, our distinguished guest for this evening, it made sense to kind of have him come through. But I thought before we even get to any of this stuff, I wanted to start with just a couple clips just for us to kind of watch and react to, and then kind of build and go from there. So for starters, I'm going to start with this one.
2% of women ages 20 to 39 are now child-free. You know what that means? You understand what this means? We're the majority. We are the majority. There are more of us.
This is one of the saddest things I've ever seen, and to think they got mad at me when I said modern feminism was just a plot to drive women out of the home, destroy the modern family, and rip a hole in society. Now they're celebrating doing the thing that they claimed wasn't happening, as usual. Listen, I just got one thing to say to this video and the women in the comments celebrating being able to take vacation after vacation after vacation because they made the choice to remain quote-unquote child-free. You guys are all going to be so sad and devastated when you hit menopause, or when you hit the end of your fertility window, which may happen before you hit menopause. There will be literally nothing you can do at that point. Nothing you can do. There will be no eggs left to retrieve, even in an office. There will be nothing you can do. And that may be the moment when you really, really decided that you want more than anything to have a baby, to have descendants, to have a family, people to take care of you as you grow old. And it will be too late. There will be nothing that you can do. Now, I'm not trying to be mean, and I'm certainly not trying to hurt women who have fertility problems, but if you are making this choice based on the lies that are being sold, like endless vacations or not having to strap a toddler into a car seat on your way to the store, like this woman said in another one of her videos, then you are being walked down a garden path that you may never be able to get off before it's too late. This is a movement that's been forced upon women, imposed upon women, and enforced by other women for decades now. And it has done endless amounts of harm. And I'm just going to say it, there's a certain percentage of women who just never want to have children. They're not wired that way, and that's okay. That's totally fine. But it isn't that percentage. That percentage, that's brainwashing. And that's a tragedy.
All right. So for starters, fellas, initial thoughts with the first lady who was celebrating the fact that more and more women are opting out of marriage, opting out of family, opting out of literally almost any type of form of tradition. And obviously this is a product and consequence of feminism having been with us now since the 60s. What you guys think?
We're going in any order. I'm late this evening, so I'll defer to my brothers. Because I'm late.
Well,
I gotta stay in the corner.
on it.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, what I tend to see whenever I see stuff like this is something about these women that have always wanted to operate or behave like this. And I think those particular movements that unleashed the ability for them to be able to go out and do it effectively is... Somebody got their mic on?
It's a feminism fire alarm.
My apologies. I got the window up. That's my bad. And every time I do this, you know what I mean. The fire engines and all. Well, that's my bad. I'm late, and also the fire engines outside. That's my bad. My apologies.
Go ahead. Turn that fire down on your TV. That's the damn problem.
Well, I don't want to say that my opinion on this is unpopular. It might be popular, but I tend to see a behavior that women innately, or a way of moving or a way of acting in society, is something that women have always wanted to unlock. We just had too many rules and too many orders and too many laws that constricted them from being able to do so. Now that these movements have been able to pave the way, now we get to see how women really wanted to behave all this time. And I know you're gonna have a lot of people out there say, "Well, my mother never did that, my grandma." Well, I would make the argument that if they had the same leeway or the same access and opportunities and stuff that they had to do have today, that they probably would be acting and behaving the same way. It's just once you start it's a matter. I don't want to use the term control because I know a lot of people look at the term control as something negative, but being able to guide and direct a lot of those things have been relaxed so women can be free to independently, move the way they want to, and you actually get to see the direction and the behaviors that they actually wanted to champion and embrace. And it's just playing out. And now we're like, hey man, like, it's feminism. Feminism is one piece of it that unlocked the door, but they've always wanted to get out. We just, as men, as a masculinity, as a patriarch, as men who are leaders and heads of these households, have always, kept the beast tucked away. I think a number of us knew that our women had this in them. They just didn't. It was just locked away, and there was no way for it to get out because we had so much control and order. Now that those things have relaxed, now you get to see what really women want. And the comparison example to this is, you don't really know your wife until you go to the divorce court, so to speak. The way she behaved and the way, that thing in her that turns ugly has always been there. It's just been in reserve. It's just been on the bench, just waiting to get in the game. And I think that women have this behavior that women are showing has always been there. They just haven't been able to effectively express it because of the way society was structured. Now that those barriers are gone, now we get to see how women truly feel about us, how they truly feel about family and all those other things that they're deviating from. That's just my opinion.
Nah, bro, I've definitely heard this more and more, where I think that men and a lot of people that have all these complaints about the quality or the state of femininity in women in the country, and saying how much different the women were in the past. The more and more that I hear stories from the past, the more and more I'm starting to probably lean a little bit more in your direction, where I think a lot of cultures will probably resemble ours if they had the lax rules and openness and liberalization that we have. I don't know that it's like a specific, unique thing just to Western women. I think it's more so like any country where things kind of are pushed and kind of opened up to the way that they are. You are going to see some women kind of take advantage to it to at least some degree. Dr. Curry, what's your thoughts?
I mean, it's interesting listening to that. I mean, when you look at what's happening in the West, you've had a combination, especially in the United States, Europe, right? You've had a combination of higher education, especially among middle class white women following the civil rights movement, and you've had a politicization of white women's will. So when I think, I mean, for me, I always have to think of distinctions in terms of what groups we're talking about. When we talk about white women for a moment, then we're talking about a group of people that historically have endorsed all forms of violence, all forms of self-interest, supported lynchings, castrations, and manipulated politics so that their group rises above everyone else, namely alongside white men. So if I'm looking at that historical framework for the last 200 years, give or take, I'm not really surprised, because for white women, the question is, how do they accumulate more power and more wealth in competition with powerful white men? Which is why I think you see the huge polar extremes when you see like white feminists, both as scholars and content creators, in relationship to what you see on the other side with white men who are pushing back against what they see as a loss of patriarchal power and a decrease of economic resource and political legitimacy. When we talk about Black women, I mean, I think it always has to be contextualized. Largely, Black feminism is an academic and middle class movement. So we have other issues among working class and poor Black people that's going to articulate itself as exploitation, this kind of assortative mating issue that we see, that I see constantly on social media now, where women are expecting their bills paid and 100%, et cetera. Those are class realities, right? Because it's suggested a certain need that poor working class Black women have, that they are appealing to, in many senses, a kind of patriarchy or at least paternalism to take care of them, even in the courtship phase. So I see those as a little bit distinct, right? I think, and I think if we're being really honest here, there's a greater danger in white feminist ideology, right? That is trying to lump Black men and Latino men, et cetera, inside a disposable population, right? Like, the white woman that called ICE on the people that fixed her roof, for instance, right? They're moving through a white supremacist system with a kind of recklessness about power, children, political visibility, and their relationship to other groups of men. Then you're going to see with Black feminists and even Latina feminists who are now under the guise and under the auspices of becoming disposable under Trump's administration. And I think this is reflected in these kinds of comments, right? The idea that women saying that they're the majority of the world doesn't mean much unless you feel that you have access to politics and economic resources and wealth, right? If you're a poor white woman living in a trailer park that feels disregarded, you don't have much to celebrate, because you see men, white men especially, as a way to mobilize outside of that to increase your class. So I think we have to be specific about that. Now, what I will say is funny about this, man, is that the notion of female supremacy and even these kinds of comments are really ironic, right? In a world where you have a blatant misogynist, imperialist, and you're in a war with Trump talking about we're celebrating the fact that we're the majority now. If women are so powerful, if women are so peaceful, why did you not see this kind of block of white women who are celebrating that they outnumber white men, they're more powerful than white men, push back of any of the nonsense that we see happening right now? Right? We didn't see that. We saw overwhelmingly a majority of them side with a misogynistic patriarchy, imperial power. So I'm skeptical, right? Because this is just one reaction. I'm skeptical in how prominent this view is, but on the other hand, I'm really interested in what's the consequences of white women saying that they're the majority and they outnumber everyone now. The question of whether or not they reject family, right? The question of whether or not they want to be married, well, that's really a question of how they think it benefits their self-interest. And I'm interested I'd like to know more about how white women think their self-interest is being benefited by them abandoning family, besides they become like the white men they say they hate. You're going to be patriarchal, you're going to be capitalistic, you're going to have to abandon family and say that the choices I make benefit me more than being alongside a man. That's pervasive throughout Western society. But I don't think it's unique. I think it's a confluence of economics and politics.
You mentioned earlier in your words just about the levels of dangerousness in terms of seriousness and dangerousness. And I'm actually going to play a clip, and then I'm going to jump back to you and then Dave and Obsidian, in terms of, it may be true that the white, well, I'm going to just say liberal version of what this is looking like in regards to feminism. Facts, like you said, it condoned lynching, it condoned a whole host of things that completely destroyed and helped contribute to what we're kind of is playing out in the Black community. But now we're seeing an open level of misandry from Black women in academia, even down to just getting online and saying some of the most insane, vicious things. And now I would argue that, yes, the white feminists and what they were pushing and what they were espousing, and basically pushing these women to be like, well, listen, we're going to fight for this, but the replacement for the men is going to be the state. Now we're at a place now where men really do have to reevaluate this type of behavior. So I'm going to play a clip, and then we're going to respond to that.
Those of us who don't like men, people think that we are pretending to not like men for a man. No, sweetie. No, you can't pretend to dislike men so that you can get a man. No, you have to actually dislike men at the pit of your soul. You have to question patriarchy and misogyny at every single turn. And you have to truly and willingly be ready to be alone for the rest of your living life. In fact, you must prefer it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just
Well, this is my argument. We are at a spot in place where there's so much open misandry. I think that our community in particular has been dealing with this for so long, to where we're now at a stage where what's playing out in the other communities is something that we've had multiple generations of dealing with. And now we're at a stage where I would argue the white feminists, the CIA, the Marxists, all the different infiltrators that push this stuff, they actually probably have been able to step back and kind of just let the chips fall where they may now. I don't know, but what do you guys think?
Well, if I could pick, go ahead.
No, I was about to say I'll defer to Dr. Curry. He's our esteemed guest. I'm happy to go after him. I'd love to hear his thoughts about this.
Okay.
No, I appreciate it, brother. Well, let me say this. I think the research by my former student Myron Gilmore supports this. There is a level of counterinsurgency and ideological resocialization that happened during the 60s and 70s around Black feminism in Black communities, especially poor working class Black communities that were the most militant, right? That aimed to destroy the very core foundations of both Black radicalism and Black male militancy and radicalism, right? So I think we have to be very clear. That's just a historical fact that when you have Black men, especially fighting on behalf of the Black community, where you have the mobilization of working class Black people against the state and government, you have an introduction of middle class Black feminism and a role that it plays to diffuse that, right? If we start from that, then I think you're right that the socialization effect that we see among educated Black women, middle class aspirant Black men and women, does embrace a level of anti-Black misandry to motivate and rationalize its demonization of these poor Black men. Now, the reason that I think that's important, though, may differ a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's important not just because, like this sister says, you have to hate men, you have to be against patriarchy, misogyny, etc. And just listening to that, so in her view, like I'm trying to be generous to her view would be that all Black men, I'm assuming she's speaking to the Black context, are patriarchs and misogynistic. Hence, you can't date anyone, right? And you have to accept being alone. That makes no sense, right? Like even among, and this is why I say that I'm confused by how these things play out. Even if you take the strongest feminist position, then you're now just making a biological argument. I mean, the fact that you're a Black man, you're a patriarch and a misogynist. That runs contrary to all of history, right? And all the data. Black men are the most egalitarian group of men the world's ever known. They are less sexist. They support linked faith. They support women working outside the home. They support Black female candidates or female candidates generally for political office, etc. They've historically thrown their back around Black women's political issues. They recognize issues of surrounding abortion. I can go on and on, man. And the data on this is clear, right? Both self-reported data and comparative data that compares Black men to other groups of men in the United States. So, in my work, I've talked about this a lot. What I think the most dangerous aspect of this is that what you're doing is you're re-articulating racist tropes about Black men under the guise of gender theory. And if I could just take a moment to explain that. So if you would go all the way back to 1857, when Black men were starting to see the dawn of freedom, right, after slavery, you had white thinkers, ethnologists like Samuel Cartwright, publicly come out and say that the biggest threat of Black male freedom from the shackles of slavery, the biggest threat that posed was to women and children. He suggested that when you looked at the Dahomey and African cultures, Black men would kill women and walk on their skulls. They paved African streets with the skulls of women, okay? And he suggested that you have the same thing among Black men in America, where now that they've tasted freedom, they beat women, they're against women's rights, they're just fundamentally misogynist. And this idea carried all the way through the suffrage movement. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, Phoebe Cousins, Cady Chapman, right? All these feminists made this claim about Black men as a political motivation or ideology to prevent them from getting the right to vote. Now, if we just take that as a brief example and then fast forward to the 20th century, these are the same arguments that were being manifest by white women during the mid-20th century, where they said, look, Black men are dangerous. They only care about their penises. They're rapists naturally. So if you take the view that black men are fundamentally patriarchal and misogynistic. In a world, right? What's important about this world, we're in a world where previous to black feminist arguments, nobody referred to black men as patriarchs, right? All you're saying is that black men are violent, right? Because you don't, black men don't control institutions, they don't control the economy, they don't control universities, right? So what you're saying is you have white men who control the directions of societies, and then you have these really nasty, violent, misogynistic black men who will do harm to you. That's not being against patriarchy, because the alternative that I've seen from many of these women that make these commentaries is either be alone or date outside your race or date white men. So I've failed to understand,
or be gay,
or be gay, right?
Yep.
Right. But I mean, but even when but again, that's another thing, because when you look at the rate of violence in lesbian relationships, you don't have a decrease of violence against women, right? You have an increased rate of prevalence in domestic violence, domestic disputes, as well as severe forms of domestic violence, like, people threatening people with knives, items, etc. So the alternatives don't fit the message. If you say that I want to fight against misogyny, patriarchy by insulting black men, and I embrace dating white men, I don't understand how you're against patriarchy and misogyny by dating the patriarchy misogynist, the white patriarchy misogynist, right? That's not an answer. If you're against intimate partner violence, then why intimate partner violence varies by age and socioeconomic status. We know that usually younger people and people who are from the lower socioeconomic status or brackets tend to have more incidences of intimate partner violence. We see higher levels of that in same-sex female couples especially. So I don't know what you're running away from. The problem is that, again, you're targeting black men and saying they're misogynistic, patriarchal, dangerous, etc. And you disregard every other form of evidence and all the elements that spur violence to fixate it on a population of men that suffer from this victimization at the hands of black women in a similar rate that you say that you suffer from it. There's no solution there. There's fatalism, right? There's willful stereotypes and ignorance about what black men are as a group, but there is not an alternative to what you claim you're against, which is patriarchy and misogyny. Said differently, if all the black men in the United States disappear, the society doesn't become less patriarchal or less misogynistic. So what we're constantly diagnosing in these social media reactions with this kind of punditry is an assertion that black men still remain savage and black men still remain violent. And instead of just saying that, you're coding it as patriarchy and misogyny, a hatred of women, when everything that we know about black men's sociality, even when we look at dating and marriage rates, black men they're the second most endogamic group in the United States. They're only second to black women, right? So it's a very strange claim to me, and it's largely ineffective because it's not true, right? We could go all day between whether or not black women perceive black men in a certain way, but at the end of the day, you have to say, look, does the evidence support the claim they're making? The answer is no. And what about their alternative? No. So we have a system of misandry that's trying to rationalize the social position and what's even worse, the political and criminal treatment of black men, right, under the guise of misogyny and their danger to women that varies very little from the kind of pro-slavery thinkers of the 1800s. And I think that's the most dangerous aspect of these kinds of ideas.
Obsidian. Go ahead,
Dr. Curry, me, Obsidian Ali here. I'm a big fan of your work, big fanboy.
Thank you, sir.
Got introduced to you by way of Dr. Tiasan Johnson.
Yes, great friend and colleague.
Yes, very good brother. The Man Not, excellent work. You kind of inspired me in one way or another to write my own tome on modern black feminism. What I have found on this whole question of black patriarchy in my survey of black feminist literature, and increasingly in my book, I make the case that modern black feminists are those who thrive on social media. I have found over the years that really what they mean when they say black patriarchy, or they say black men are the straight black men are the white men of the black community, and things of that nature. What I found is what they really mean, and when I say they, I'm talking about black feminists and now increasingly black women on the street level. What they mean is they had a bad interpersonal relationship. and they had a bad interpersonal relationship experience with what I refer to as an Archie Bunker type brother. You remember Archie Bunker, right? Archie Bunker from All in the Family. This blue collar, working class, racist, sexist, misogynistic individual. He talks down to his wife. He talks down to his daughter. He argues back and forth with his son-in-law, Meathead. He argues with the brother next door, George Jefferson. What I found, Dr. Curry, is that many Black feminists, Black women at street level, and even some brothers on the progressive side, what they really mean when they say patriarchy in relation to Black men is these sisters ran afoul of an Archie Bunker type brother, and then they want to expand that and explode it into some type of overarching system. What do you think about that?
No, I think that's plausible. I mean, look, you have to remember that many of the first articulations of Black feminism, and I don't mean just like the popular ones like Bell Hooks. I mean, if you go all the way back to Michelle Wallace, to Jean Noble's 1970, I believe 78 book, Sister, We Are Thou Who Are Noble. These are largely trying to explain interpersonal relationships during the civil rights movement. So Michelle Wallace was interested in, well, if Black men get civil rights, they're going to choose white women over Black women, and they're going to choose them as both marriage partners and sexual partners. You see a similar thing in Jean Noble's, right? This idea that working class Black men are violent, and from understanding interpersonal violence, right, like domestic abuse, etc., we can draw these larger assumptions about Black male culture. It's completely unscientific. The issue, and for me, the issue isn't the perspective, right? If you want, there's nothing wrong with the individual saying, look, I'm gonna start from my personal experience and I'm gonna draw certain lessons from that. The problem is, and I really want to be clear about this part, the problem is that that's the primary mode by which Black feminism operates as an epistemology, as a way of knowing about the world, right? Through interpersonal relationships, the personal being political, right? And then when people push back and say, hey, your personal experience has excluded all these other phenomena, the only argument that people have is, well, that brother's a misogynist, he hates women, he's an incel, etc. You see, what it's done for Black people is it's narrowed the intellectual chamber by which we could explain certain phenomena. So you're right, like at a certain level, it is because there's an Archie Bunker kind of figure that's animating their imagery of personal relations. You see this in Bell Hook, right? That if you challenge a Black man's masculinity, he's going to or beat you to sustain it. Now, remember, the numbers don't suggest that by any stretch of the imagination. I know Bell Hooks is not the best when it comes to numbers or even citations, but the numbers don't suggest that. What's more important, though, is, as you're saying with academic Black feminism, why does that become the default position? See, and Obsidian, this is the issue. Hassan talks about this a lot. If you take a view that says that Black men are violent, that Black men are patriarchs, and say that Black feminism has discovered this trend among Black male culture, it gives permission to racist white liberals. It gives permission to academic institutions. It gives permission to the Democratic Party and politicians. And it gives permission to law enforcement to rationalize their participation in the murder, slaughter, incarceration, and removal of Black men from Black communities as a mission that is bringing about safety, security, and moral good. So if you fundamentally believe, and you've seen this with kind of these radical Black feminists like Kimberly Foster, for instance, right? Where she will say, well, we should march for Eric Garner, right? Because he had a history or he had a domestic dispute in his past. So the value of Black male life, even in death, is being evaluated, measured, right? Assumed based on how Black feminists see certain groups of Black men as being threats to them personally or to the community more generally. But when you ask the same kind of conversation about the rates of young Black boys who are victims of abuse, premature or early sexual debut of young Black boys at the hands of older Black women, rates of intimate partner homicide among the Black community, Black men are roughly 30 to 35% of the victims, right? When you're looking at social mobility, education, and employment, and the preference of white liberal institutions like the academy, like even kind of blue white collar jobs to prefer black female employers or employees over black male employees, suddenly the conversation stops. You see, our notion of patriarchy among black people is largely based in deficit. Black men don't have the power of white men. Black men don't have the history of murder that white men have. Hence, we have to come up with some new explanation. Oh, they're violent interpersonally. But white men, and this is the kicker, white men are patriarchs historically. White men have been murderers historically, but we prefer them because they have the wealth and the spoils of the histories of imperialism, war, etc., that they utilize through patriarchal domination. So when you say, "Oh, I want the educated white boy, he's nicer," you're not against patriarchy. You just like the package of it. You like the middle class package of a clean white boy or clean middle class educated white boy that offers you a standard of living that you don't think a working class black man can, because the working class black man is poor, violent, and is going to compete with you on certain issues. So I think you're right. I would just say that when it comes to academic black feminism, is not just that, oh, it's a poisonous ideology. It has its roots, like many things in the black community, it has its roots in white intervention. The problem is the generalizable idea that black men are less than human, right? That black men are trash, that black men are the white men of the black community. And that was just a stupid article, right? Like, I mean, it starts off with like giving black men the biggest piece of chicken or something like, it's not meant to be an intellectual argument. It's meant to rise up certain feelings about the disdain that groups of black women have to certain groups of black men. And none of that's productive, right? Again, none of this traces to facts. These all trace to ideology. And if we're having a war of ideologies, then black feminism has to be put under the microscope to say what's motivating this kind of animus towards black men. You can't keep running with the story that all black men are violent. You can't say that every black man's a racist. The data doesn't support it. So you have to come up with something else. And I think academic black feminism builds its legitimacy on the fact that it keeps working class black men that many white liberals are afraid of outside of key institutions.
And caveat, let's make sure that we use the word grape instead of the RAPE word, because we're gonna have to go back. I didn't know that was okay. We're gonna go back and edit and clip it up. We're gonna come to Dave, but I'm gonna read a couple super chats real quick. So guys, and we've already, on my end, from my view, I see that we're already at about 350 plus people concurrently watching. So guys, if you're not a subscriber to any of our channels or platforms, please make sure that you do. Please make sure you like this and send this to 2, 3, 4, even 5 people. We're gonna check out a couple of super chats and then we're gonna come to Dave. Matuza, thank you for the $5. I appreciate this. Some love. Appreciate you. Thank you. Landon Dallas, 1984. Thank you for the $2. Feminism is fundamentally white supremacist. Cousin T Tall, thank you for the 1999. Salute to the genius of Dr. Curry. The man not is a magnum opus worthy of international acclaim. Yay. Thank you, Ms. Couture, for the gift of the memberships. And then Landon again for the $5. These women know what they are saying is false. They push the anti-black propaganda in order to justify selfish desires for autonomy. Yeah. One of the things that, and we kind of talked about this beforehand about wondering if some of the people that are espousing this, both men and women, if they actually truly do believe this, and to the degree, because my view is I like when I see the people who claim that they'll pick the bear over men, and they have all this the animosity and hatred, but they're still getting pregnant. They're still going out on dates. They're still having sex. They're still going out and going to get services and things rendered from the very men that they think are so predatory. I do wonder if there's a massive disconnect between what it is that they're actually claiming versus what they actually believe. But Dave, what you think, brother?
Well, Dr. Curry, again, great to have you here. I've been sitting back for the past 40 minutes, and I've been chomping at the bit to say quite a few things. The first thing that I want to say to you, not just you, Dr. Curry, but everybody listening, is when I was in sales after I retired from broadcasting, I had a sales manager tell me something very important. When you are working on a deal, the last thing you want to do is start to defend something that makes absolutely no sense, because at that point you basically stepped in the excrement and now it's all over you. The same way that I don't argue with people about the fact that, I don't know, Goku could probably dust Superman in a battle because all you got to do is move him away from a planet with a yellow sun. It's a fictional argument to begin with. To act as if for the past 65 years we have been somehow in control of our families, in control of our society, and in control of any type of systems, to your point, is absolutely intellectually disingenuous. And the fact that we continue to step into that pile of female funded excrement is absolutely utterly ridiculous, especially when we understand, when we talk about modern feminism in and of itself, it was an op. It was a CIA op. The spy wing of the federal government decided to fund Gloria Steinem while they came into the communities after they moved all the middle-class skilled labor jobs out of our communities in droves in every major city, and went to women, our women specifically, and sold them a bill of goods that went something a little something like this. You're a woman before you're black. You need to come and do that, because whenever they need numbers, they come to us. And what I'm saying is not some weird tinfoil turban conspiracy theory. It is a fact. The woman said it out of her own mouth. And the thing that really pisses me off is it's about as oxymoronic as jumbo shrimp. Because in fact, if modern feminism was supposed to be uplifting black women in such a way, then you have to explain to me why women had to do things like petition the government for the Crown Act to wear natural hair like mine. We have to start looking at the actual data and the actual situations before we start getting caught up in the melee and the nonsense. And I'm really sick of listening to people, both these beta male simp manginas running around here, writing articles on Blavity and The Root and everywhere else, talking about we are the white men of black women. No, we are the black men you rejected because you decided that if you were going to get a black man, it was going to be Pookie, Ray Ray, and Lamondre. And then after he bombed you out and depleted you like Biden exited Afghanistan, then you want to sit up here and start having a draft for stepdaddy season. It is not our fault when we have not had the ball in 65 years because you said ain't nothing going on but the rent. I need to have a meeting in the ladies' room. A scrub is a guy who thinks he's fly. No, I don't want you. While you're filing for bankruptcy, telling us we the ones who scrubs because we decided to carpool and save our money. I am sick and tired of listening to women talk about how easy it is to be a man and how difficult it is to be a woman, when the truth of the matter is there's a woman named Nora Vincent who wrote a book called Self-Made Man where she pretended to be a man. And you know where she is right now? Pushing up daisies because she couldn't hack it because of all the toxic misandry, not just in Black women communities, but in all women communities in society in and of itself. So you can miss me with your talk about patriarchy. You can miss me with your talk about misogyny. We don't hate our women. We love our women. But the truth of the matter is no man with two balls and any type of father in his life wants to be in a same-sex marriage with a woman with ovaries and a clitoris. And I land.
Well, let me let me get to more of these clips.
It certainly is a perspective, sir. I mean, look, I completely understand. I completely understand the view. And I think that you're right, that there has been a generalization about Black men's role in patriarchy and misogyny that does not fit the facts, right? We have not been a group of men that control these institutions. And I think that at least what you see in the academy, right, and activist spaces, is the idea that because Black men are men and they're dangerous to women, that's enough to put them in that category. And what I think you accurately point out is that's not the reality and that's not the data. The question of what Black men are going to do, and this is, we talked about this, when we had our first conversation, Jeff. The question of what Black men specifically are going to do is one that we have to approach with a great amount of seriousness, right? The answers for Black men is not to embrace Black feminism, because Black feminism doesn't answer the questions around what it means to Black men. It doesn't answer why police kill Black men at higher rate. It doesn't answer why Black men are incarcerated. It doesn't answer why Black men have higher rates of unemployment, right? Or why Black men are victims of abuse, child sexual abuse, and even physical abuse at earlier ages than their white male counterparts. So what we need is a way to ascertain facts and move away from ideology. And Black feminism holds a hegemonic and ideological control of most things that go on in the Black community, right? At least from the social media and academic perspective. They don't really, it's not a form of discourse that's motivated by data. It's motivated by personal animus and personal experience. So until we kind of get our hand on what's the facts of the matter, and then how Black men are going to react to those facts, then I think you're going to keep seeing this kind of divide. But and I said this before, and I'll just kind of end on this point. Trump demonstrated what a patriarch looks like, right? In the whole history of 150 years of the claims that Black men have been patriarchs since they left slavery, you have not seen Black men have the power to do what Trump has done, right? That needs to be accounted for. The fact that the CIA, the FBI, all had a hand in feminism, the fact that the Information Revenue Service that Gloria Steinem was working with was spreading anti-Black propaganda, suggesting there was no race problem, but a gender problem. These are all things that manifest and created the situation that we're in today. So we need to have different conversations in the Black community. But again, we don't control the institutions. So the proliferation of Black feminism, the support of white racist liberals, is what largely dictates how Black men are positioned, interpreted, and react to these kinds of economic, political conditions that they created.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was Obsidian or Dave that said earlier that they convinced our women to identify as women first, and somebody in the chat said, "But white women identify as white first."
Yes,
and I think that's the trick. Where me and you, Dr. Kerr, when we had a conversation before during my interview with you, this is the thing I've been wrestling with for a long time. If too many of our women in our community uses the same talking points, has the same mindset, walks lock and step with them, and challenges every point of authority and even critiquing that's coming from us in our space, I'm in the camp where I'm in agreement, maybe running to a particular other political party that's, created on the American side may not be the answer. But my argument is voting along just like them ain't working.
You're right about that. It doesn't benefit Black men. So I'm not a Trump supporter, so at no point, I just because I don't support white supremacy, but there is a point to Black men recognizing that the Democratic platform doesn't endorse his interests, right? That doesn't defaultly mean that you support Trump, but it does mean that if you say, listen, if Black men suffer unemployment and Democrats say we're going to create more opportunities for Black women, and you ignore the issues that Black men have, right? That doesn't justify Black men necessarily just giving their vote to Democratic parties and Democratic candidates. Like there's legitimate critique that any other group of people would have about whether or not their vote translates into policies or protocols that benefit their group demographic and interests. But when it comes to Black men, we are told over and over again, your personal interest, your self-interest, your economic interest, your educational interest does not matter. You should vote alongside Black women to better Black women, right? And I'm not necessarily opposed to that if it was mutually beneficial, but in a world where Black men are getting shafted and told that they don't matter as a political entity or constituency, there's a huge problem with that, right? Yeah. So you're right, but again, we have to be better than the social media pundits that are advocating this kind of ideological Black feminist position that Black men are trash, right? In order for Black men to win this, we have to be very specific about the nuance and the direct goals and agendas that benefit Black men and Black men as a group in the United States, rather than just imitating talking points from the white manosphere or even from the alt-right, right? Yeah. I just think the interests are fundamentally different, and that's something that no other pundits are trying to do, right? Like even we were talking a little bit about the Black male feminists, commentators, etc., like social media creators. there's no nuance there, right? You see, the difference is we're thinking through problems. We're saying, okay, well, look, if this is not the case, what may be the case? These people are just repeating what the same thing that you get from like consciously or signifiers, what you could read in your introductory to women and gender studies class, right? It's not profound, it's not nuanced, it's not data based. It's just spread the ideology as much as possible. The problems that Black men face in this country require more than ideology. They require policy and they require analysis. And that's not what we're getting from this, right? We're just having debates about whether or not black men are bad. And I think that's a position we should reject just on face.
Yeah. What about you, Dave? What were you about to say?
A couple of things. First, again, I'm not going to, my daddy, God rest his soul, would say, it's not what you called, it's what you answer to. I know I'm not evil. I don't have to walk around here convincing anybody I'm not evil. I know I'm not violent. I know how to defend myself and take care of my wife and children, but I'm not walking around here being violent just because some blabbity black wants to say it and doesn't understand the culture, context, and nuance of what's actually happening. The thing that is so bothersome to me is, and when I say this, I need to be clear, left wing, right wing, same bird. Political issues are always going to be amongst us, just like Jesus said, the poor will always be amongst us. Walking around like a Roland Martin wearing a 2X shirt and a 5X body, talking about vote like a black woman, has done us no favors. We do not need a political solution to a cultural shift problem. What we need is the one thing that they have destroyed from us for the past 65 years, and that is positive, strong black families. Darwin can attest to this, just like I can attest to this. Jeff's a little bit newer in the game, but marriage is hard. Marriage is the most radical thing a black man can do in order to hem up his community. Marriage is not sexy all the time. Hell, Michelle Obama said it was 10 years she ain't like her husband, and she went to the daggone therapist and said, fix him. What we have to start doing is stop doing this boogeyman bullshit, talking about, well, Trump did this and Trump didn't invent racism. Trump didn't tell J. Edgar, he didn't get in the time machine, use a flux capacitor and say, you know what we should do, J. Edgar? You know what we should do? We should go ahead and tell everybody that the last thing we want is a black messiah and black unity. He did not go into every single community and destroy folks. We got to stop with this boogeyman BS, because Joe Biden has been in politics for 50 years longer than Trump and did more damage to a third of us in my lifetime than anybody else. It's not about who's serving us. It's about an agenda, and we don't have one. The other part of that is we do not cut the check, and the other part of that is we're more concerned with being liked than we are being effective. And I will tell you, like I have told my children, like I have told my wife, and that I have told my 80-year-old mother, whether you like it or not, this is the Dave Show. And because it's the Dave Show, all of y'all are going to fall back like Marlon Jackson. Respectfully, you're on the stage. I love what you bring to the party, but ain't nobody running around here making Thriller and moonwalking. And that's the problem. We continue to defer. We continue to say, please, dear, might I have my balls back? I will be damned. And I'm sorry if that is toxic, if that is misogynist, if I am hating you by taking a stand. Let me explain something to you that a buddy of mine once said on the Wendy Williams show. You want me, when it goes bump in the night, to go downstairs and make sure everything is straight, right? If somebody pinches your behind and we're out in public, you're going to want me to knuckle up, right? Yeah. So guess what? Get in the kitchen and make me a sandwich, respectfully. But see, when you say that, it's a problem. But they can go and say, well, a real man would do this and a real man would do that. And of course, the manginas of the world won't say, you know what? A real woman should have these qualities, because we're not running around with a laundry list. We're real simple. It is feed us, drain us, let us work so that we can have peace. And when we get home from fighting everything from white supremacy on both sides of the aisle, then we need to make sure we have what Superman has in our wives, which is a fortress of solitude, a soft place to land. And while it's cute on memes saying be his peace, most of these hair hat wearing, strong and independent. I want absolutely everything, but 5 minutes after I meet you, I want you to take care of my kid. Women do not have the capability, the skill set, or the mindset or fortitude to actually be a husband's piece. So yeah, let's focus on what we should be doing and not wait around talking about, well, let's just make sure we do that. Nah, I'm good on that. Sorry.
No, I
Now-
understand that perspective, brother. I would just say this, like I agree with the point about black, but I mean the assault on black people and black men is a centuries-long endeavor, right? And I mean that quite seriously. So I understand the point you're making about how black men should have partners or wives that bring something back to them, right? That gives them peace, solitude, etc. But let me ask you this though. If we did accomplish that, so let's say we fixed families, we fixed marriages, etc. Okay,
Mhm. Sure.
would you say then, because this is what happened during Jim Crow, so I really would like to know how you think about this.
Come on.
What happens when you deprive and starve a people of the benefit of economic opportunity, political representation, and positive psychological self-realization? So, and I'm thinking about segregation. You have black homes, but those black homes were broken because of poverty. You had, when you look at the ethnographies from the 30s, 40s, 50s forward, you have the same thing you have now: high rates of violence, ideas of partners saying that they'd rather be with white people, etc. Right, especially among working class black people. Do you think that marriage is enough if we don't address what comes in and out of our communities, both intellectually, like in terms of education, and economically? Like, how do we remedy that if we don't pay attention or focus on how laws, policies, right, opportunities are allowing black families to thrive or to improve?
Great question. A couple of quick things. We're about to, in this summer, see, for those of us who are comic book movie fans, we're going to see Spider-Man go through a metamorphosis. And in that metamorphosis, he's going to have 4 additional arms. God only gave me 2 hands. And my mama would say, you know, you need to make sure you handle one thing before you handle something else, right? I don't build castles on quicksand. If in fact, stabilization of the black family was not important, we'd still be the most married, the least of having children out of wedlock. We would still be the most skilled laborers in here, and we would make sure that our children were protected. The thing that we are not talking about is that before we get to everything else, there's a world of difference. I'll give you an example. My grandfather had a 6th grade education, and he put 8 kids through college. The thing that I need you to understand is that when it came to my grandfather's block, there were people in the hood who knew who to mess with and who not to mess with. And you ain't mess with nobody named Lewis, because it was going to be a problem, because my grandfather was that work. There's a different energy when men show up for their families, period, point blank. Now, having said that, let's talk about the socioeconomic conditions, and let's talk about what actually happens when we have been deprived of things. I don't know how old you are, Dr. Curry.
I'm in my mid-40s now, brother.
Okay, so I'm in my late 40s. My father was born in 1935. My mother was born in 1946. My father's mother was born in 1904. My grandfather, whom I never met because he died in 1969 before I was born in 1896. His father was born in 1864. The funny thing is, I can look and remember a time where I was sitting in this room and I was having a conversation with my grandmother. And she said, "You know something, David?" I said, "Ma'am." She said, "What's funny to me about my children is that they spent all of that time doing sit-ins and going to lunch counters and doing all of these things." She said, "With the exception of your mother, who was an emergency birth, all of my children were born into black hospitals with black doctors. We had black butchers, we had black veterinarians, we had all of these things. And I'm not saying it was a paradise, but we did not have to look over our shoulders the way my children and my children's children's children do." what the hell did we want to sit at lunch? I'm sorry, what the hell did they want to sit at lunch counters for to eat unseasoned food? I swear it didn't make no sense. And my kids are super smart, but I don't get that. The hood has always been a problem. But what I'm not going to do is sit up here and act like we're a victim in a situation where we can make different choices because we have more computing data in one of these than we do in every single alleged NASA mission. What we're not going to do is act like we're not in a situation where at least 3, if not 4 of us can make more money sitting in front of a laptop talking like this than my grandfather, who was in charge of the Bud Company here in Philadelphia, was making to feed a whole bunch of families. What we're not going to do is act as if the government has not destabilized us by keeping us in food deserts. What we're not going to do is talk about the fact that they have convinced our women that somehow taking your child and running a vacuum to them is somehow healthcare, but we continue to let our women go belly up on the table in every medical field and no longer be here and ascend at higher rates than any other counterpart. We have things to do, and a lot of that stuff comes from leadership. So we address all of that. The other part of that, to land my plane, is while we're spending so much time with this propaganda and this soft soy boy nonsense mangina mess, we never do the one thing that the LGBTQ does, that the Koreans do, that the Chinese do, that the immigrants and the tethers do very well, and that what white people do, whether they are men or women or whatever they're identifying as this week, is that we not only go and vote, but we find the candidates who will bend to our will with an actual agenda and pay them to do what we need to do. We only talk a good game and then talk about why we're victimized, but yet and still, we continue to go every single Sunday and spend $33 million a week at the Black church, which tells women that they're strong and independent and they should listen to Freddie Haynes and Jamal Bryant more than they should listen to Christ himself, let alone the people they decided to shed their clothes and spread their legs with. Man, stop. We got to start talking about what we need to do for ourselves and then worry about everything else. If you're building your foundation, you don't have to worry about building your castle, but to do it backwards is to put your castle on quicksand. So, yeah.
Interesting. Listen, I appreciate the feedback, because one of the things that comes with this discussion as it relates to feminism is everybody's looking at it through different lenses. Like I've definitely looked at this through the whole 4 or 5 blind people being brought to the elephant, and they're just, touching different parts of it. And I can see and understand how people are arriving at different conclusions. I think part of what Dr. Curry is discussing is like the amount of interventions, or rather interruptions, when it came to economic systems and things that we did have in place. And now with inflation and everything, it's like, I understand Dave's agenda. I understand the importance of the political component to it, especially in terms of what you mentioned just now, Dave. But there's other people that have a totally different worldview, where they're starting with the psychology. They're starting with the mentality and the ideology, because their view is we can't get enough of us to get on board if the ideology, if the philosophies are too far apart. If people, like for instance, the average, if Black men in mass said, we're not voting for another Democrat, we're not even saying we're going to run to Republicans. We're not voting in mass for another Democrat candidate until they put these 4 to 5 things on the agenda. Maybe some of the things from Dr. Tia Sion Johnson, things that Dr. Tom McCurry has mentioned, even some things that you've mentioned in your book.
Certainly.
If these 5 things aren't on the agenda, we'll pay you. But if they're not running on it, if they don't take the money, we're not voting for them. Those women, rather than getting on board to see those things tangibly come, they'll vote for the Democrat and then blame us for losing the election. So
you mean like what they did last year?
Yeah, 2024. So that's,
and they did that in 2022 and 2018 with Stacey Abrams in the Peachtree State. Yeah.
So for me, there is an issue when it comes to the ideology that's kind of helped contribute. Of course, we got all the other factors and all the other forms of systemic oppression and interruptions and whatnot. But the ideological hold of 2 consecutive generations being indoctrinated with this mindset, this is difficult because it's not just, and Dr. Kermit, I'm glad that you mentioned a couple key figures because I know we don't want to hold you too long. It's not just that many of the women are espousing these things now. We have the men that's grown up in this environment also espousing it as well, and in almost telling them and training them and reinforcing, like, well, I got a man that's now saying that this is the right way to view it. So I'm going to play consciously and then public offender.
Make patriarchy look not attractive. Yes. I think that right now our community is experiencing a red pill pipeline, a conservative alt-right pipeline that's really, really appealing to a lot of young Black boys. Yeah. And I think that because they're catching these
Did Ask a Brother freeze up?
Yeah, it looks that way.
Yeah. It looks like it froze for a second.
Yeah,
Like he froze and his video also froze.
yeah. So my thing to you, Dr. Curry, is what is your take on that radicalization that obviously he was about to speak on?
Yeah, I think it's false. You know, I mean, consciously likes to talk a lot, but very, very little of what he says is actually true. Right. So we're not looking at and the voting data supports this, man. I mean, you know, we're not looking at a huge, you know, revolution in the Black community that's moving to the alt-right position. We don't see Black men's positions largely unchanged. I mean, they've articulated the dismay they have with the Democratic Party. They've connected the dots, so to speak, about the relationship of preferring women, and specifically Black women, to Black men in education and employment. And any kind of voicing or breaking from, you know, this kind of Democratic plantation party basically leads to the text that Black men are moving to the right. But we don't see any evidence of that. I mean, we see both among Black men and Black women. If you're using Trump as the outcome, you've seen a larger number of Black men and women support Trump. But by no means is that the majority of Black men and women at large are in the Black community. So I think what Conscious Elite does is he articulates positions that are popping up in social media, right? So when incels broke, suddenly there's Black incels. When transgenderism broke, suddenly there's a hatred of Black transgender people. You know, he's very much trying to ride the internet waves. The effect of that may be that you get likes, but you're woefully inadequate because you never wait to verify what you're claiming is actually happening in the Black community. And I've listened to a few of his posts. He had one with Signifier where he was trying to attack me personally. And again, it's just ad hominem. Like it's not based on research. Like it's a clown show under the guise of making social commentary. So based on the facts, Black men are not moving towards the right. You see that. It's the same thing with the loneliness epidemic, right? Like this idea that Black men are lonely. That this is about white boys. That data specifically is about how white men don't have friendships, how white men don't have social connections, how white men are retreating either into kind of an incel ideology or a disengagement from society that pulls them to the right, right? With Black men, they still have flourishing friendships. They still have extended families. They still experience social fathering. The culture and the social context is completely different. So yeah, Lee is just wrong about the just facts of the matter. For him to try to benefit from that, that's what I think is most dangerous.
Jeff, you had went out for a second, a little technical
the whole video or no?
You stepped in. Yeah, you froze in the middle.
And so did the video, but we got the gist.
Yeah,
make patriarchy.
There we go.
You know what I'm saying? Whether we're talking about intimate in the bed or whether we're talking about in the movement, whether we're talking about in the classroom, whether we're talking about doing policy making, there are various ways that Black women engage with us as Black men that leads to violence upon them. And I think that it gets in the way. I think us trying to be egotistical gets in the way of us being really real about how that shit really works.
When we talk about sexism and patriarchy and misogyny and different ways that discrimination towards women, different ways that inferiority towards femininity gets inscribed, there are ways that individuals feel like that is calling out power too much, and they feel like you're betraying the power. There's been decades and centuries of practices and customs that's always justified how we wage violence towards women and how we are discriminatory towards women and how we are able to justify a man of being able to show his masculinity and dominance by how they are able to control women.
When I talk about how this is something, simping is a term that serves as a primary function of policing man's behavior, that policing mechanism that comes from us easily buying into the way that we learn from the plantation. That's why it comes so natural for us a lot of times. Like, how dare you dishonor your manhood and masculinity by trying to prioritize these women? They're supposed to be on the margins. How dare you ambush us and show us that you really ain't a real man, because a real man gonna always be able to prove a woman the dominance and prove to a woman you are beneath me. The simping and pandering, these terms, it shames men for showing deference, care, or political support to women, framing it as an ambush and dishonor to the manhood. A lot of times we will justify gender violence or justify a woman, you feel me, being beat up, but that's not doing nothing because we got to mind our business. They ain't none of our business. When Ayanna Dior, the trans black woman, was being beat up after George Floyd had got murdered in Minneapolis, Ayanna Dior, this trans woman at this gas station, she proved that the notion of being able to protect black women can always already be upheld if we believe the person that's perpetuating that violence towards black women is somebody we can beat up or whoop.
Hold on. The leaders. Women got the plans. They have the wherewithal. They have the education. They have the desire. They have the drive. They have the attention span. They have the concentration. They have the focus. All those things, right? Like, women are just superbly driven, in my estimation. Like, they just are really driven people to do what's best. It's not just that they're driven, because men can be driven too, but it's women are driven to do what's best for everybody. They're driven to do what's best for the collective, Jesus, right? Men are not inherently. We're not. We might be innately, I don't know, but it's been beaten out of us right now. Don't know. So I truly believe that it looks like, on paper at least, scientifically, right? It looks like,
cite your sources.
Men need to just support women. Women should be running the show. We got to change. We got to shift a little bit. Focus on supporting the women as opposed to supporting the patriarchy, right? Support the matriarchy, not the patriarchy. Everybody is winning now. Everybody is winning, B. I'm really committed to that at this point. Trying to get men to understand that we should be in support of women. We should be supporting women. We should be supporting their needs. We should be supporting their rights. We should be supporting them getting educated. We should just be supporting women, because when you think of women as a collective, what are women doing that doesn't deserve our support?
Again,
name the thing that women are doing collectively that doesn't deserve the support of men.
Killing 20 million black people.
40. I can't think of one thing. So if you don't have anything, then how about we just support the women, right? AKA the matriarchy. Yes, cool. Let's flip this patriarchy, turn it into a matriarchy. I am all for it. God. I don't want to be a leader. Like, I have no interest in being a leader. But I am so not in, I don't want to be a leader whatsoever. And I've been like trying to get other men to be like, bro, just sit down. I have enough self-awareness, thank goodness, to know I'm nobody's leader. I'm nobody's leader. I'm not fit to be a leader whatsoever.
Can you be a good?
It feels good. It feels good for a good reason too, because you know that's what you're supposed to be doing.
I can't even.
Yeah. Let's.
I didn't even know.
I just have a question. Real quick. Two, actually.
A bit on this one.
No, I know. I'm sitting. I promise. I'll be real quick on this.
Yeah.
Number one, who are these morons? And number two, why do we care? I don't. The last one.
I'll tell you why. I'll answer that. Go ahead.
No. Hold on. Wait. Because I need to make sure that I'm gonna shut up. I don't know if that last one and his husband, agree on this, but I'm trying to understand how these people. Oh, I get it. That's why I'm not a billionaire, because I'm not pandering to these morons. Go ahead, Jeff. Explain this to me, because I don't know who these people are. In my world, this type of nonsensical mangina mess does not exist.
Yeah, my view of a feminized environment is that when it happens for too long and it's too rampant, you're going to get men that operate and kind of manifest in one of these two ways, either panderers, simps, or in the latter case, both. And I actually think he believed, like, I actually believe it. I've seen other videos, other clips that people have sent me. There are men that, I think that's why our voting is the way that it is. I think that's why whenever there's an issue between parents, most people that grow up don't know dad's perspective. They tend to side with mom. We are matriarchal in terms of mode and operation, at least to some degree. So I'm like, this isn't so shocking or surprising to me. And it's like, and I think the missing element is, my view is, and the reason why I think like it matters why these guys, they have massive platforms and they're indoctrinating and conditioning women to think that having misandrous attitudes with any man that's not gay or part of the LGBTQ or that talks like them is a problem. And a lot of women follow it. A lot of women look at these as models of what men are supposed to be. And the wild part is when you're this big and you have this type of platform and you're constantly reinforcing the types of stuff we're talking about, this is why it's getting so bad. But before I get to everybody, including Dr. Curry, I want to circle back to Darwin because he's been waiting patiently. Brother, what you think, man?
I mean, I like the question he asked, man. And once you become a creator in the space where you have to influence an audience, you'll notice that some creators, one that you said, well, like, where do these guys come from? Oftentimes, a lot of these creators is created by an audience. They don't create the actual audience they speak to. The actual audience creates the influencer. These type of guys. Think of it like that. This guy is nothing without the particular art. We call it a TAMI. We call it a total addressable market when it comes to content creation. Once you know that there's a market, then you just become an influencer that gets attracted by this particular audience. People don't follow the truth. They follow what aligns with what they already want. So if a group desires comfort, validation, independence, or a certain lifestyle, then a voice that actually tells them that they can have it without any trade-offs will always win because it fits the desire. That's how narratives gain power. It's not about morality or anything like that. It's about alignment with what people want to believe. So whoever can package, like this guy right here,
you tell you what you want to hear.
Call him what is it called? Public offender. Whoever packages that desire the best, whoever can say it in a way that feels good, sounds right, and removes all of the resistance that that person gains influence over the entire group, even if the outcome is harmful. Because most people don't think about, they don't think in outcomes. They think in feelings or promises.
He's now conditioning, bro. He's now conditioning women to think that men not wanting to be leaders is the norm. That's what they should be.
Joe, I'm sorry. That was the first time I've ever seen this person public offender. Could I? Do you know anything about this person? Like, what is there?
He is most. I'm going to be honest with you. He may be the ultimate panderer that I've ever seen. That's saying something.
The ultimate, you know. When I was
so he's like the pandering final boss.
Yeah. When I was a kid, there was a wrestler.
The whole nine, bro. Like he's
polish.
He's not joking when he says he does not want to be a leader. Like he wants her to be like it's a real.
Listen, I would say. Let me add this. I would say he's not necessarily the most ultimate. I would say he is the most desperate pander. He is. There are different types of panderers. There's panderers who can be a pander because they have the charm and attraction and sexual appeal to be behind the camera and be able to roll over the women. He is not the Derek Jack. Those guys are in the ultimate tier because they're using their bodily aesthetics to give women the idea that they may have a shot at them in the future. This guy is married to a woman who calls his wife his leader, who has a degree in psychology or something like that. And he literally makes rage bait content on TikToks all day, every day around this time. I think if we go on TikTok, he's on there right now saying, "Black man are the problem." That's a simple prompt.
Yep.
It's over his head behind a green screen. black men are the problem, and he is asking for people to come up to debate with about 400, 500 people in there, and he'll mute you and kick you off if you start making any type of logical sense that can counteract or prove facts or anything against his premises.
And you know, it's interesting about this, and I really want to get Dr. Curry's piece on this. So first of all, when I was a kid, and I used to watch wrestling, right? So there's this guy named the Ultimate. I don't know what happened to him, but there's a guy named the Ultimate Warrior. So when you said the Ultimate Panderer, that's what it made me think of as the Ultimate Warrior. But anyway, first, we can't really have any conversation regarding the dishonorable Lee, the disreputable Lee. That's what I call him. Not the conscious Lee, but the disreputable Lee, the dishonorable Lee. And the reason why is because I talk about this in the book. I know you're familiar with this, Dr. Curry. 2 years ago, in the summer, a woman by the name of Rhoda Osman, came to prominence because she claimed that she was just attacked out of nowhere with a brick-wielding brother, okay? Went and got a whole lot of money from GoFundMe, the whole bagilla. Come to find out, the Houston Police Department did their investigation. Right there on the surveillance tape, we see not only is Rhoda Osman in mutual combat, which is what you've been saying for years, but she was the one that was the offender here. She attacked the brother. He responded with a bottle upside her head. Now, you could debate whether that's right or wrong, but her story was a lie. And the disreputable Lee, that's what I call him. Look at the camera right now. Consciously, I call you the disreputable Lee because talk about manliness. Part of manliness is attention to the facts. Part of manliness is attention to the evidence. Part of manliness is saying, all this talk about black men being accountable, but when the push came to shove, consciously, you were not accountable in saying to the brothers, hey, listen, man, the evidence is in. The police, the authorities have done their investigation. I was wrong. My bad. He doubled down on it, Dr. Curry. He doubled down on it. What is manly about that? What?
Yeah, listen, I think I actually saw that video where he doubled down. I want to say a few things about this because I try to remain professional at all times. So my tidbit, I don't like Conscious Lee. I didn't like him when he was in college debating, and I certainly don't like him as a person now. But despite the fact that I don't like him, I'm not going to attack his person. I'm going to talk about the problems with his argument. Lee continues to push arguments, just like the clips you said, that say nothing. So he works through axioms. Black men don't talk about domestic violence because that's what it means to be a man. Black men don't support women because to be a man means you have to marginalize women. These are not supported through evidence. These are just claims that you use to interpret the world. And what often happens with Lee, and I think that this is what also happened in the Brick Lady case, is that you're so desperate to fulfill a narrative that you have to elide the facts in doing so. So Lee will talk about things like domestic violence, but he will never, for instance, he always talks about research over research, but he will never show you what the CDC is showing in terms of prevalence rates. He will say that black men are sexist, but he never shows you, besides for the small gap in the Trump election, right? The municipalities or the local debates or the state debate in terms of where black men are voting. You see, it's very easy to fool people who, for instance, may not be college educated or just get most of their information from social media if you throw around a certain kind of language with confidence. But nothing that Consciously has said is backed up by data, not a single thing. And what makes it so dangerous, right? What makes it so dangerous is that what you have is him saying, oh, I'm progressive, or I'm knowledgeable about a certain area, basically when you're just spitting off and remixing bell hook quotes. And the danger is not just the source, the danger is the implication. Because just like the Brick Lady case, You're saying that black men who are accused of something as a group should not be offended by it. That black men who are accused or wronged or injured as a group shouldn't put faith in the criminal justice system that has traditionally demonized them. So they should just disengage and be construed as whatever, groups of people or black women or black feminists in this case want to construe them as. He does not have a plan for the development of the black community. His talk, his discourse, his arguments only result in one thing: his popularization among black feminists and black female political candidates, right? The effect of that is disastrous for a black community that's actually trying to get commentary about what's affecting, right? So how should black men have responded to be? This is no different than Brian Banks when he was falsely accused of right? The issue is that you say black men don't have any rights if the perpetrator is a black woman. How if black men should distrust the criminal justice system because it's racist, and then you get a Brick Lady case or you get a Brian Banks case, then how do what form of justice do black men ever have any access to? Right? People like Lee say that's okay, even if you're wronged by black feminism, even if you're the victim of a false accusation, even if you're being maligned as being abusers, when the data shows that intimate partner violence is bidirectional and over 50% of the victims are men or young boys, you should be okay with that. You see, the ideological implication of what he's saying is that black men don't matter, that they have no human dignity worth respecting. And this is what sells, right? Lee is not being invited. Lee is not invited to speak or hold table with other academics. Him and people like Signifier fill in this kind of space where they use social media as a way to give themselves credibility and speak on academic issues and academic theories that they don't understand very well, right? Signifier, for instance, went on Jared Ball's show, giving definitions of hegemonic masculinity. That's the complete opposite of what hegemonic masculinity is, right? He was saying that it's that idea that all men want to be white men. No, the idea of hegemonic masculinity is that you have an ideological functioning of dominant masculinity that operates through the press, through wage, taxes, job. Basically, the white boy in the suit that can enforce his views on the world without lifting a finger because he controls the media, he controls the economy. And then you have subordinate masculinities. You got marginalized masculinities, which black men are, or working class masculinities and white men that are fighting against that system. You see, the very notion was that there are different kinds of masculinities, and he conflated them as if they're all the same thing. So what you get with these people is a political agenda. Feminism is the answer. But then when you say, okay, if feminism is the answer, and this is what you get with your public offender person, if feminism is the answer, then why does it endorse high incarcerality, right? Why does it support the police state? Why, if we're just going to listen to women, do we listen to the 50-some% of the women who voted for Trump, right? That supported white supremacy? Oh, maybe better yet, he was thinking about the olden days when the majority of white women still supported segregation and Jim Crow and petitioned the UN for it. You see, this is the problem. The problem is that when we're saying, look, what do you advocate, right? Now, I'm not the kind of person. I don't think the default position of every political leadership is black men, right? I think black men have a very specific charge to solve their own problems. I think black men need to have a political platform to address our issues of domestic abuse, violence, murder, etc. But it doesn't mean by default every political leader should be a black man. These people act like every political leader or idea has to be a black woman. That the only way the black community is going to succeed is through following black feminist tropes and tenets. But that seems to overlook the very basic fact that maybe you have a black man that's a good leader that could lead us to X, and there may be a black woman that could do so as well. You see, they disallow for any part of democratic or even racially realist positions about how black people have advanced historically, right? And what they give us, and this is the dangerous part, what they give us yet again is white supremacist tropes, right? Because remember, at the turn of the century, the whole argument that was coming from white progressives was that the only way that black people would be civilized is by civilizing their women. The people like Otis Mason, right? You know, I teach my classes this stuff. The only view that black men was that they had to be confined, incarcerated, or shackled. Okay, so they said in order for us to understand or bring black people into civilization, you had to educate their women so that you would take the notions back then, Christianity, capitalism, education, etc., assimilationism, to their women so that it would spread throughout the culture. So what's being reinvented here, and you see the same thing with the popular tropes surrounding like the endorsements of Spelman, for instance, right? The idea is that Black leadership will be based on the women of the race. And the argument for that is not progressive. It's insidiously racist because it was saying that Black men are not intelligent enough. Black men cannot control their sexual instincts because they're predators. So the effect is go through the women, we'll kill off and incarcerate the men, and that will develop the race and move it closer to civilization, assimilation into white societies and culture. Yeah. People like Conscious Lee don't know enough about history or the sociological facts of the matter to understand that what he's saying is not only not true, but still part of that same system. There's been nothing invented about Black men now that hasn't been said in the last 50 to 100 years previously. So we're going to keep basing our understanding of this on these kinds of pundits, right? There's a complete break, right, between the facts of the matter and what people like Conscious Lee or this brother public offender is trying to say.
Darwin, real quick before you interject, and then we're going to hit to Dave, and then I'm going to read some. Let me do the super chats, then Darwin, then Dave. RCTE copyright, appreciate you for the $20. MS Delta guy, yo, Miss Delta, is it Miss Delta or MS Delta guy? Yo, thank you for the $100 for the collection. Hey. Dr. Curry gonna have to come through more often if the people gonna be giving like this. Who else we got? Eric Alexander, thank you, sir, for the $19.99. This is a big part of the reason why a lot of men are checked out. The very men that women should be afraid of are the ones they entertain. A lot of us need to rid ourselves of the idea of proving our decency and humanity. Oh, who else we got? Rogue Pill, thank you for the $4.99 super sticker. Let me Obo. Thank you for the $5. We got a Killer Moves back on the show. I know you got triggered the last time. Relax before you break your back. Take several seats down, Gramps. I don't know who that's in reference to. I'm the youngest on the platform, so I guess that ain't in reference to me. I don't know who.
I don't know. Maybe reference to my gray hair. Who knows, bro?
Oh, okay. Hustler philosopher. Thank you for the $20. By understanding first that we as a people are literally in the middle of a John B. Calhoun's rat utopia. Hey, damn, yeah. He who remains. Thank you for the $20, paying the obsidian tax. Thank you to the visionary Dr. Curry for his tireless contributions to humanize Black men. Mac, thank you for the $5. But despite having networks, having close friends, despite giving up the Democrat plantation, we are still falling behind economically. Yeah, I think from what Dave said, what Dr. Curry said, and everybody else in the panel, is definitely a multi-tiered problem. And I do agree that perhaps, attacking things from multiple angles simultaneously when we're on the same page, we can actually start to see significant improvements, even if it's not on the macro level, definitely on the micro level for sure. Mac Main, again, thank you again for the $5. We should most definitely stop simping. Please, can we get a national stop simping day? Just one day a year, fellas. One day of no simping. Highly unlikely. Maybe Father's Day is a possibility with that. Jabril, thank you for the $5. Con Leach and caricatures of Black stereotypes that force assent. It's insidious, dude. Not even FBA. It's exploitive, not genuine. Mac Main, again, thank you for the $5. This grown man is an advocate for men stepping back. This grown oh yeah, that was, I guess that was in reference to public offender. Yeah, thank you, Mac. Yeah, the ultimate panderer. Eric Alexander, thank you again for the $19.99. I realize that when these radical feminists wants to remove anything involving men, they usually need men's help to do it. And yeah, that I actually to agree, I acknowledge that. Mac Man, thank you again for the $5. Public offenders, what happens when simping reaches Super Saiyan God mode? That guy's pandering has ascended, my guy. KG's Travels, $5. Like Tony Gaskins hating on Coach Greg Adams.
Greg Adams.
Yeah, that was wild. Him calling him.
This is news to me. What happened?
Yeah, I didn't hear this.
This came out, I want to say the end of last week. Tony Gaskin. Again, these guys that are built up these audiences, whenever men are pushing certain things that doesn't align with the feminist far left ideology, they're now attacking these men. And
if anybody out there's got information on this, please send it to me. Because I got to get a piece of this over on Rumble. Please, this is news to me. I'm just finding this out. If anybody out there got information on Tony Gaskins going in on our conclave, Coach Greg Adams is a conclave brother.
Yeah,
he's a black man. We're going to talk about that tonight too, Dr. Curry. He's a conclave brother.
Basically insinuating.
You go against him, you're going against me. So I want to look into this. If Tony Gaskins got heat from my brother, Coach Greg Adams, he also got heat for me. Send the information to me on Instagram, on Facebook. You can look for my name, Mumia Obsidian Ali. Send me all the information. I'm on it. I'm going to get on this.
Basically, he just insinuated because he was living the free agent lifestyle and wasn't pushing men towards marriage, that basically that was the leanings of men that are homosexual, that think that way. So that we'll leave it at that in terms of how he arrived at that conclusion. Martin, thank you for the $5. I appreciate you, brothers. Thank you for the good that you do. Free agent, ATL, appreciate you, good brother, for the $2, and Lemmy as well. I was referring to Dave, the plague eater earlier.
Plague eater? I'm sorry, I don't understand light skin no neck babble. Can we move on? That's the only response I'm going to give until he puts up $100 super chat.
And then last but not least, the last two, a sower of C. Thank you for the $5. I'm mad but glad you got the famous Dr. Curry in the building. Salute, family. And then last but not least, Kenneth Young, 4892. Thank you, sir, for the $10. Thank you for the conversation tonight. All right, so Darwin and then Dave, and then we're going to at least wrap things up for Dr. Curry so we're not holding him any longer. Darwin, what about you, brother?
I just got a question about Dr. Curry because I know he saw that.
Yes, sir.
He made a statement that most of these guys that come on here in these spaces, they don't have any logical premises. They don't have any facts that they speak from. They just make all these statements that appease their audience, and they just grow with that. And whenever you go up against them or they address you, it's an ad hominem attack. They're not actually attacking the argument. But my question to you is: Are we more disappointed with the signifiers and the conscience leads than we are the fact that the audiences are able to build rapidly and massively for an influencer who don't speak from any integrity or credibility in the things that he say?
I understand that point. I think, I don't do social media much. And I'm constantly disheartened by what I see on Twitter and these other platforms because I don't understand it, right? Like I understand the arguments that they're advancing, but I guess I'm disappointed in the fact, as you say, that there's so many people in the audience that truly believe that black men are these kinds of monsters, And I mean, and it's sad. The thing about it is that, especially when you're in the academy, these people like the signifiers, et cetera, keep trying to show or at least pretend that they have a hand or a leg in the academy, so to speak. So you'll hear them brag about, knowing people like, a Jared Ball or things of that sort. But I've never seen them in any conference or academic venue. So what ends up happening is you have these audience people, right? These people in the public that say, oh, these people are like academics, right? They have advanced degrees. They're knowledgeable about these topics. And they gravitate toward it because it's emphasized in practically every sphere of their life. But you never find disagreement. So for example, if you say, oh, there's a problem with domestic violence in the black community, and you say, okay, let's have a conversation about that. Here's the data for the last 20 years, right? Or at least the last 16. I mean, NISVS data started in 2010. So if you say, look, let's look at this data, like, how do we explain this? There's not a conversation about it. So what ends up happening is this constant disinformation, right? You're creating the illusion of facts, right? You're speaking as if this is a fact and this has been written about. But you're ignoring the fact that many of the people who are writing about this isn't in public health. They're not in sociology. They're not clinicians. They're people with degrees in English. They're people with degrees in American studies, right? So and this only happens with black people, right? And I mean this. It's like we're the only culture. I mean, maybe only is too strong, but this has predominantly, some I see with Black Americans. We're the only culture where we turn away from academics, even if we agree or disagree, right? Because you could have different views of a problem, and we prefer people on YouTube, right? Because research varies, it changes. You can have different opinions about the same data, right? And then you dispute that. What you get from them is saying the data doesn't matter or it doesn't exist. Just trust this view because politically it fits, right? And we have an endorsement. This is the dangerous part, right? To go to your point, we have the endorsement of groups of people, thousands and thousands of people that say, yes, we agree with the view that you don't have to know what we're talking about. Hell, you don't even have to show us the data you're talking about. We just fundamentally believe that Black men are bad, and more so that they're dangerous to women and children, despite the fact that most of the violence that happens to children are from women because they're the primary caretakers. So the fact that we're stuck in a world of counterfactuals, right? The fact that we're stuck in a world of counterfactuals where everything is slanted against Black men, despite whether or not they're culpable for it or not, tells me that we have a cultural problem. And I don't think that this cultural problem is going to be solved through mediation of us just discussing the facts from the non-facts. The real issue is that we need a cultural reset because the conditions of the world don't match up with the delusion that these kind of pseudo-intellectual and middle-class aspirant Black people have of working-class Black men, because that's the group they're attacking, right? They're attacking working-class Black men because either A, they want to be with middle-class or upper-class Black men, or B, because there's too few of them, they said that we want to date white men or we want to disengage from the dating pool altogether. So Black men become targets at that range. That's what I mean. Like, so, what I'm trying to communicate is that behind every attitude that we see in our communities, there are structural elements, be they political, economic, or social, that are dictating or contouring those opinions. And as you say, it's the same thing with the audience. These people believe this stuff. They have personal trauma, or they're looking for explanation of some phenomenon of their life. And this is what's created. Because in the true marketplace of ideas, Conscious Lee's already demonstrated that he doesn't compete in that, right? Like if Conscious Lee was truly an exceptional individual, right, that just had a grasp on this, he'd be a political pundit, right? He'd be someone that's working at think tanks. He'd be a professor, right? See, these people like him and Signifier pull themselves out of the marketplace of ideas. They don't want to compete with doctors and clinicians and specialists. They don't want to answer arguments in front of peer review panels, etc. So once you say, well, I don't have to do that, you can just get on social media and say, I'm now the self-proclaimed expert.
Man.
Right? Because it's completely negative.
I'm going to say
you don't want to play in the arena where your ideas have to be tested. And I think that's why the audience grows without end, so to speak.
I'm going to say that, this, welcome, and thank you for answering that. And excellent question, Darwin. And Dave, I want you to chime in real quick before we let Dr. Curry go.
Sure.
I invited FD Signifier on when he covered our last episode. He blurred out our information while he was talking in reference to I think it was 2 episodes ago when we were talking about his performance and on the Jam podcast platform. I made a post and said, listen, brother, you're welcome to come and have a conversation. And he said it will cost me $15,000. So very quickly, it's very clear. Like he's just not. Okay. Yeah, it's just not.
I'm sorry if I could just say something about that. I am highly doubtful. I'm highly doubtful that Signifier commands that. We call them honoraria, right?
Correct.
In the academy. So Signifier has no book, no articles, no clinical experience, no practical experience with anything working in the Black community, etc. So if he was making $15,000 per talk, he would be making what a celebrity intellectual, right, in the academy would make, right? This is a person that has multiple books, multiple book awards, or is certainly a leader in their field, been a president of an association or like a medical society that does major consultancy. You see, this is, I don't want to say it upsets me, but it's just, to me, it just shows the disjunct between the reality of that market if that's the market that he's working in, right? That he's a consultant or expert, and then what's happening. A debate on YouTube is not the same thing as saying, hey, here are the leading experts on a field that disagree about something. Let's discuss it. I've never seen Signifier's whole argument, at least when it comes to my field of Black male studies, has been not that it's wrong, but people in the manosphere like my work. And because people in the manosphere like my work's illegitimate because the manosphere is illegitimate, right?
Yep.
So what I gather from a person like that is that they have very few analytic resources to understand the distinction between an audience and between an author, right? People in South Africa read my work. Clinicians read my work. Hell, I just got through being an expert witness in a murder trial. They, attorneys read my work. If every association becomes an indite of the author's research, then God knows what would happen if somebody on the internet read a book. You see, this is what I mean. We're so disingenuous when it comes to Black intellectuals, right? I'm more than happy to talk to people. The manosphere is not my area of research, right? Yeah. Hassan researches the manosphere. He understands the different nuances, right? But my familiarity with it is saying, well, look, even at the points I disagree with, I'm interested as a scholar to understand and then study or critique it. These people are selling ideology, brother. They have no interest in the collective, right, improvement of Black people, right? So like my wife studies maternal mortality. Why? Because we care about Black people. We care about the outcomes for Black women and girls. I have 2 daughters. So what do I care about? Education of Black women and girls. But I also am a Black man in a world where Black men get very little attention and recognition for the kinds of vulnerability they suffer. So what does my research do? It humanizes and utilizes social science to articulate how Black men suffer under white patriarchal systems of domination. And I travel all over the world to do that. So the investment that we have in what we say and the responsibility we have to get it right completely differs in the case of a Black intellectual versus somebody that just wants to start a YouTube channel. And it upsets me because you have Black men that are trying to figure it out. Black men, as I said the first time I was on your show, right? We're having a conversation, even where we disagreed, is mutual respect. Because I said I understand the perspective, even if that's not the perspective I would hold because of X, Y, and Z. Yep. These people are trying to re-socialize people into self-hatred. Now, let's be very clear. These are people who are saying that Black boys are evil, Black boys are dangerous, Black boys are right-wing, right? But you have no problem when you see the kind of murder that you've had under Democratic presidencies. So it's okay to bomb people. It's okay to call Black men super predators. It's okay to increase the funding of the police state and militarize it. So these are not morally objectionable things that we should view of the Democratic Party. You think the biggest threat's not the white people in power, but the shift, according to Conscious Lee, that you see among Black young people moving to the right in a world where Black people don't control political outcomes in the first place. Every Black person in America, all the way from 0 to death, could have voted for Kamala Harris and she would have still lost. We don't have the numbers. So then why are we sitting here demonizing groups of Black people for political opinions that don't control political outcomes? You see, these conversations don't amount to much besides pandering, as you say. I actually like this word. this kind of pandering to an ideological sect that doesn't have Black people in its focus. Black women have not been helped, as we talked about last time, have not been helped by the progress of Black feminism, because the minute a white man came into the presidency and said, we don't want that anymore, almost 400,000 lost their jobs. You see, that's how precarious, right? Black political and economic futures actually are in this country. So I think these people, I can't emphasize enough my intellectual disagreement with these people and just the lack of substance behind their claims.
I so appreciate that, because again, I personally don't consider myself even an academic. I'm very interested in academic research, and I actually look at a lot of people who have done research in it, but I don't market myself in that way. But I've read enough to know what it is, and I can see why I find so many problems in their arguments and the axioms that they're using. And my argument is a very simple one. And then Dave, I want you to come in before we let Dr. Curry go. That the things that these guys, from an ideological lens that they're espousing with how they frame Black men today, is the exact same thing that got Emmett Till killed.
Absolutely.
And I want people to understand that. that the men that talk this way and condition and indoctrinate and propagandize and try to condition these women into thinking that all of these men are predators and misandrous and just hate women and we lack leadership and we don't have the capacity to lead, and that we're just broken vessels that like everything that's harmful and bad, we are the incarnate of that. That is what got Emmett Till and all those boys hung and killed. It's the same thread. It's the same ideology. It is a demonization, and it looks at black men specifically as fully depraved. Fully depraved. And the only redeemable quality is if they start to act like and be led by their women. So until people get and understand that, that's why I will say I can have my gripes about a whole host of things. Panderers and especially panderers in that Manosphere era, they are the worst to me because they're taking the divide and putting it on steroids. They're telling our women that have this ideology and view that they're right. That they're right. And well, you know what it leads to? The black woman that we show earlier in the clip. It leads to them talking about have gender-based abortions if they find out they're going to have a boy. It leads to them saying, if we are going to get married, we're going to go to white men. This is what, and it leads to them making statements like, well, you know, since y'all couldn't vote the way we wanted y'all to vote for, we hope you'll end up like bullet bags when the cops come. We're not marching next time you end up on the streets when the cops took your life. That's what it leads to, is when these guys are contributing to that type of ideology. So, Dr. Kerr, I know he's going to interrupt, and then Dave.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask you who it was that made the claim about aborting black boys.
Oh,
was it Cynthia G or someone?
That would be Cynthia G, Dr. Curry. In the fall of 2023, Ars Technica, ARS, first word, Technica, second word, is a publication out of Chicago that deals with technological issues. They ran a expose, if you will, on one Miss Cynthia G. She has been around for some years on Black YouTube, and she has been promulgating not only misandry, that's one thing, but she was also promulgating genocide by saying outright, not suggesting, not implying, but flat out saying that black women need to abort en masse black male babies.
Yep.
Okay. And she had been saying this from some years. Finally, it was covered in Ars Technica on their website. YouTube removed her channel, but about a year later, she regained it. She's back on YouTube at present, last time I checked, and she's still flourishing. So that's just the brief background on that. I talk about that in my books and all the rest. And by the way, while I got this here, I just sought you out on Facebook to become a friend and sent you a message so we can communicate after the night's show is over.
And just to clarify, Dr. Curry, she's not alone, and that's not a small subset on the internet anymore. This is a lot more rampant. That's been growing on the underworld, so to speak. This is starting to become a very, very frequent thing. And then Dave, man, can you come back in?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm right here.
Go ahead.
A couple of things. When I was a much younger man, I was recruited by the North Carolina Wrestling Alliance to become a pro wrestler, and I trained. And the funny thing that I learned in that was that the worst thing is not what you think. A lot of people think, you know, if you're a bad guy and you get booed, that's a bad thing. Or if you're a good guy and you get booed, that's a bad thing. Or if you're a bad guy and you get cheered, that's a bad thing. No, the best way to get yourself up out of the wrestling business is to not garner a reaction at all. And what has happened is we've gotten so far away from actual logic and things that exist on earth that we miss that, and we continue to amplify noisemakers who wear Malcolm X shirts that cost more than my car note in order to somehow allow them to rule the panderverse. And for me, I want us to start understanding that the more you continue to look at a problem without offering any particular solution is absolutely ridiculous to me. In chapter 5, I go into the family. I talk about all different types of things in this book. Politically, I talk about what happens with the unaliving of our babies, and I also talk about how the left wing has exploited us for 65 years, and the right wing don't want to rock with us because they already know we're in bed with the left wing and they didn't have to do anything to earn our vote. I want us to start looking at things from the 3 most important questions you need to ask. What's in it for you? What's in it for me, and who's coming out on top? We have seen what almost 70 years of matriarchy has gotten us. We have seen what it looks like when we continue to buy into self-marketed propaganda that is propped up by people who throw rocks and hide their hands. At some point, we have to start saying, is this how we feel about each other, or this is how we've been programmed to feel about each other? These are all weapons of mass distraction, and quite frankly, we need to take our fingers off the button and start putting our arms around each other and figuring this out from a real place, and then also getting rid of these interlopers and saying, you know what, if that's what you want to follow, you get what you get. But that has no place in practicality. And I would challenge I don't know these people's names, Conscious and PDF Signify. I don't know these people. What I do know is if we're following behind women respectfully, there's a couple of shows, Naked and Afraid, and Bear Grylls did an island.
Yeah, the island
thing,
yeah.
Right? And they gave them each island with men, and then they gave island with women, and the men were building stuff up. They had already started boiling water. They had fishing nets, like the whole nine. Women were still talking about, well, where are you from? And da, 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 da. That's not to say that women aren't capable, but let's keep it a buck. If you look at the whole educated thing, if you look at the entirety of this situation, it's easy to talk about how educated you are. I only know 3 women-owned construction companies in our community. You know, I don't see a whole lot of bridge painters. I don't see a whole lot of ditch diggers who happen to be women. Those jobs are usually done by men. So we need each other. We need the masculine and the feminine. But what we're not going to do is say, here's my balls. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this on camera. And I just want you to lead because I'm too much of a wussified pussy to be responsible for other people's lives, their livelihood, and their protection. That's it. And I'm so happy, Dr. Curry, that you came here. And I hope that you had a great time. I definitely had a great time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Listen, I appreciate the dialogue. Right? I really do, and I really want to communicate that. I mean, I think it's one thing if I just stayed in the academy and wrote about Black men, and then I would find myself to be a hypocrite if I didn't engage with other Black men, even if we disagreed on certain points. Right? The issue here is, how do we educate? How do we come to a place of understanding despite disagreement? Because this is a big problem, right? And what I mean, I'm sure I'll catch flack in the academy for even having the conversation, but I think what's important about this is there was a time when Black intellectuals spoke to Black people in Black communities, right? They because our ideas have to be challenged, our ideas have to be translated, right? It doesn't mean that we're just right by default because we have PhDs. So what I really appreciate about this is, like I didn't, Jeff, I didn't know some of these people that you're talking about. And it's interesting to me that the ideas, so like I'll tell you, Obsidian, you mentioned that the young woman was saying that we should abort Black babies.
Yes.
Right. It's interesting because anytime you look at genocides, there was a recent book that was coming out, Hitler's Furies, that spoke about the role that German women played in the Holocaust. One of the first things they did was kill Jewish babies. So I find it interesting that time after time, what we see on social media and even within the academy is the blatant and visible embrace of dehumanizing language, right? Like, could you imagine if someone said that about another group of people, be it whites or Jews, right? We automatically understand that they have worth, they have dignity, etc., and that can't be allowable. But when it happens to black men and boys, it's a debate. Should people get to say or have the freedom to say that black boys should be black little babies should be murdered? Right? This idea that we're bullet bags, that we're trash, that we're the weakest link. These ideas don't come from any study of history, right? Because remember, the initial argument, at least by Black Feminists in the Academy, was that black men ran the civil rights movement, that they were motivated only by their self-interest, right? That Black revolution was too male specific and male focused. Now the conversation is that we don't have the capacity to lead. And I think what people, young brothers like Public Offender, miss is that he denies black men with having a spectrum of talent and capacity. So if you say that we should always listen to women, it follows by consequence that black men have no capacity or talent in leadership or organization. That seems to be quite strange if you thought that there was something that should be equal among the genders. If black men and black women both have some capacities, some incapacities, that seems to be more closely aligned to reality. So we have to start rejecting these people, right? We have to start rejecting the idea that black men have no worth and dignity. And to me, it just has to be a line drawn in the sand. Mm-hmm. We're never going to change the audience, right? As the brother was saying, like, I really appreciated that point. We're not going to change the audience of people that want to believe this. Mm-hmm. But what we can do is show how anti-black misandry proliferates, how it's articulated, how it's widely accepted, right, throughout various media platforms and throughout culture. And I think the effect of that will be black men recognizing, hey, this is a kind of race and sex specific kind of hatred that black men have been experiencing. And it's this hatred that people have of black men that allows this stuff to happen. You can't explain to me why you have academics, black female academics, going on Twitter saying that black men are trash and bullet bags. Right, like think about it. The right is going in saying there's a liberal bias in the academy because people don't talk about conservative talking points. Right, the whole Project 2025 is all about that. Right, about how there's this ideological slant. But then on the other hand, you have people calling you for the murder, for the complete disregard of black men, and no one's pointed this out as an ideological bias or even a violation of black men's civil rights in the academy. Because it's happening within leftist spaces. Yep. You see, that's something that we have to become more honest about, right? That the deleterious consequences and stereotypes that's being imposed on black men and boys in the United States, be it from the right or the left, be it in education or activist spaces, or if it results in job discrimination, right? We have to start talking about how black men experience suffering and discrimination in society. And until we do that, no amount of what we're trying to do in terms of bringing attention to this speaker or that speaker is going to change how black men think about themselves. Mm-hmm. That's the issue. You got Public Offender because he doesn't have a positive self-conceptualization of black men and boys. He doesn't see that there's historical aspects of leadership. He doesn't see the courage of black men who fought for the liberation of Haiti and started the Haitian Revolution. He doesn't see people like Robert F. Williams who put his life down on the line to protect black women who were being by white men during that period of time. You see, we don't educate ourselves about the triumphs of black men and their fight to humanize the world. We talk about them only from the lens of pathology, right? Yeah. So we have a big problem and a big project. But I these social media people, I mean, I don't know how you brothers do it, to be quite honest.
I'm gonna be Doc, I'm gonna be honest with you. The reason why I finally decided to engage in it and move out of just my normal profession and engage in this is because I didn't know until the last few years that this was actually the intellectual battleground for the masses. It actually is. And I think a lot of people who it's just social media is shifting the mindset of hundreds of thousands of people simultaneously week in and week out. Mm-hmm. And by avoiding it and just sticking to just my practice and working with my clients on an individual level, I was realizing especially with my field, which is completely feminized and completely dominated and captured ideological field, I learned and realized very quickly, like if I don't come into the social media space and actually do what these guys have been doing for years, there was an aspect when it comes to mental health that I felt like literally no one's even giving men or anyone the opportunity to even hear something different. Doesn't mean I convert everybody, doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with me, but I realize now that this is an actual ideological war, and that silence is complicity, and just basically saying they win, they got it, and just because I'm starting and I'm new, starting last year till now, I'm realizing now by starting to see their reactions and responses even now, that I think they're starting to realize that there's a growing movement of people starting to wake up to what's actually been happening and how they've been being duped and pandered to and being lied to. So I think even bringing you on and doing what we're doing in our own respective ways, both individually and collectively, these are just our small attempts to plant seeds for people to look into further and realize maybe the ideology that I was espousing or believing or told or even raised in, maybe that I have questions. Maybe I need to reevaluate. Maybe I need to have a total reevaluation and stripping down of everything that I thought I believed in and knew. And I'm going to have the argument where everybody says we're cooked, everything's done. I'm starting to see cracks in the sisterhood in the last 3 months. I'm starting to see more and more Black women who would have never spoken up publicly. This Houston situation with the behavior of Black women in Houston, Florida, some of the Black women, professional Black women, as the way that they're conducting themselves and how they're talking and all the insane stuff we talked about tonight. I'm now seeing an influx of Black women that's been silent my entire life, now getting on public platforms and now starting to hold their women, each other accountable. So I'm saying that, what you're doing, what we're doing, and each of the ways we're attacking it, I think that, rather than just saying let them have it, there's a space where we can acknowledge it and address it, but also come up with practical steps, both privately and publicly, to really start moving us with momentum into a lot of the things you guys have been discussing. Because for me, just with my thing alone, when I'm collabing with you guys and Dr. Tia San and others, I'm not doing this just because of the audience. I'm doing it because I genuinely believe in the very near future, a whole bunch of brilliant minds are going to be coming together behind the scenes and start putting a lot of these things that we've all been talking about, writing about, even preaching about on social media, and then being like, all right, these are, like Dave said, these are our top 5 list of actionable things that we think have a realistic shot at getting passed. We're gonna do it on that front, but we're also going to do it on the economic front. We're going to do it on a personal accountability front. And I think that if we attack it and get like-minded individuals to actually buy in truly to that, we'll see it on the small levels, and then we may see a societal and a cultural shift. So listen, sir, we appreciate you for coming through as our first.
I'm more than humbled to come in. Thank you.
And we definitely welcome you back whenever it is you're ready and wanting to come through. But we're not gonna hold you any longer, sir.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
hey, brothers, thank you so much for the conversation. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. And please friend me on Facebook, man. I sent you a friend.
Yeah, man. I never look at those friendships if it's not at the top. So I'll go search for you. All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
I'm bad at social media, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, Doc. All right, man, fellas. How did y'all feel in terms of that conversation? And this was, more academic in nature. We got more into the needs of how this stuff comes about, how it manifests, and how it has been adapting over time. What y'all think?
I thought it was a very good interview. I was very happy to just let Dr. Curry take center stage and kind of really work through all of these issues, argument by argument. The one thing that really jumped out at me, because there's been an argument, not necessarily at the Black manosphere, but to be brutally frank, the white manosphere is never framed that way, but the white manosphere. And the argument has been because on the white side, there's cropped up this idea of an intellectual manosphere. So what that means is Chris Williamson, who's a big YouTuber, Chris Williamson, Rob K. Henderson, Mackin Murphy, and Alex Datesyke. And we can also toss in William Costello. Now, with the lone exception of Williamson, whose claim to fame is really being a YouTuber. All these other guys do have legitimate academic bona fides. Rob K. Henderson out of Yale, Mackin Murphy out of Oxford, William Costello, protege to David M. Buss out of University of Texas at Austin, considered one of, if not the world's foremost researcher on incels. So to be fair, these guys do have academic bona fides. What they'll say about the Rollo Tomasis of the world, etc., you know, that crowd, they will say that these guys are not academics. These guys
are pseudo intellectuals as well,
talking out the side of their neck. Now, on this side of it, it's the inverse. Dr. Tiasan Johnson, I brought Dr. Tiasan Johnson into the Black Manosphere a decade ago. He in turn knew Dr. Curry, and his work took on like wildfire in the Black Manosphere, the man not. And Dr. Ronald Neal out of Wake Forest University. We have a lot of brothers that are either tenured or associate professors, academics. I know a lot of brothers that hold PhDs either in or adjacent to the Black Manosphere space. And it's kind of like the reverse. So we have this situation, what you call the pandasphere, and I love that phrase. So you got these brothers, FD Signifier, for the record, his own admission, he dropped out of college. He was in a doctoral program and dropped out. That's what he said. I didn't say it. Conscious Lead,
I think it was like either research or sociology or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Conscious Lead does have educational bona fides. He does not hold a doctorate degree that I'm aware of. And others, you know, the public offender and the jam pocket. So you have these guys, many of whom they are not in the academy, like Dr. Curry said, but they're holding forth and holding themselves out as some kind of authority. So I'm just, once again, no disrespect to our brothers from other mothers, but once again, the Black Manosphere is the sharp end of the spear. We actually have academics in the Black Manosphere that's telling you that these other guys, they just don't know what they're talking about. I can't wait to get with Dr. Curry. I want to send him my work, see what he thinks about it. Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Dr. Ronald Neal, they completely signed off on my work. They reviewed my work, signed off on it. So I'm really excited to talk with Dr. Curry earlier. It's been an honor to kind of share the same screen with him because I've been a big fan of his work for a long time.
Oh, dope. And what about you guys? Dave and Darwin.
Yeah, man. I'm glad we had this conversation because what it does for people who, like you stated, you know, if you just stick to your line of work and just focus on your therapeutic lane and you don't come into the battlegrounds where the discussions are happening that actually shape the mindsets and the behaviors of the people that you actually have to come and heal. You're in a reactive position and not a proactive or in a real-time position, so to speak. So it makes you think on, you know, a scale of, in a way to where you're able to look at all of the things, all of the narratives and all of the arguments and talking points from a content creation standpoint. Because I tell everybody, think whenever you listen to a lot of these people who come into these spaces, you have to look at it from a content creation, economical, business mindset.
Yeah.
Like, what is the outcomes for these creators? We can argue that if they didn't get the popularity they would get, and the trends and the views and the revenue for the content they're making, and if it was actually heavy on the side that we are in right now, I would argue that the signifiers and all these other guys would probably be pushing this type of content and not necessarily the pandering. So once you start to separate that from what they actually do and what they actually stand for, it doesn't justify it, but it makes you understand why they took that lane. Because it's a market and you can monetize off of it and you can feed your kids. And whenever you have a growing number of people who don't really care about the best interests of our people specifically, or the people that your issues you're addressing, it's very easy to take up a lane because people are already embracing that nobody is going to come and save them. None of the people in that audience actually care about you. Tailor your message the way I want to hear it. the way I feel, I cater to my feelings and my pains, and I don't care about nothing else. If you do that, we will make you a king in this space. And I think a lot of creators are embracing that.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been able to understand. I've been able to separate all this stuff. And I'm not saying we don't have real issues.
Of course.
But when we come into this space where it's about the influencer,
Mm-hmm.
the bottom line is to get as much clout and appeal to a total addressable market.
Mm-hmm.
And no shade to the Anton Daniels. I firmly believe that guys like him, they thrive off of controversy. They thrive off of scandal.
Mm-hmm.
So long as it's separate from how they represent in real life, which nobody knows unless you actually in their proximity. All of that doesn't matter. Can I get my views up? Can I get my numbers up? Everything doesn't matter. I don't care about it. And that's what I come to understand. So I think from that angle first.
Yeah.
And then I start, lining up the understanding behind actual political or, economic or community issues for particular demographics.
Yeah. And then I'll let you close, Dave.
Yeah. A few things. Very simply put, I think, having Professor Curry here is always a great thing. I don't ever believe in speaking in an echo chamber, quite frankly, because I don't need external validation. I know what I know, and I know what I don't. For me, I think the problem has always been that it's not really sexy to tell the truth. When I was in entertainment, I would always tell the truth. And I felt very comfortable in that because I'm not going to sacrifice who I am based on whether or not I'm going to lose my job. Now I am the job, so I can be real honest with you. The thing that I want to say to everybody who is watching this content live, who's going to watch this on a replay, is very simple. As much as you guys say you love what we're doing, the four of us coming together and being able to have this space for men where a lot of different ends of the manosphere are represented through the four of us and by the guests we bring on, I'm going to need you to show up. And what I mean by that is shout out to everybody who does the super chats. Absolutely. But let's keep it a buck. There is a situation that we had a couple of weeks ago where Darwin, through no fault of his own, lost his YouTube channel because there is an active war against us being truth tellers and holding not only women, but men to account. Even ourselves. You don't know the conversations that we have behind the scenes, and you won't. But what I will say is there should never be a situation right now where the Black Manosphere Conclave is not completely sold out, where, for those of you who want to be able to get coaching or get relationship advice should not be coming to Darwin or Jeff. Like it does not make sense to me. We need to make sure that your support is as loud from a financial standpoint as it is from a comment super chat standpoint, which we absolutely appreciate. I think it's extremely important that we show up for ourselves because this is the time. And whether you buy my books or not, whether you decide to get business coaching or not, whether you decide to book me for speaking or not, if you say that you care, caring is like love, and love is a verb, it's an action word. And as the funny thing is, when you look at the panderers are winning because they're putting money behind the panderers. You can say whatever you want to. Everybody I know, my Jewish business friends, my Asian business friends, my Black business friends throughout the diaspora will say the same thing that I'm about to say to you, which is money is oxygen. And that's why they get to breathe real freely. And we're sitting up here still trying to put our masks on in comparison to that. Their voices are loud, not because they're right, not because their message is true, but because their message is funded, it is palatable, and it is candy. We like mess and we like candy. We like to feel good and we like to listen to things that do not poke at the things that we need to improve upon. And so I'm saying to you, if in fact you love what the men's table is doing, if in fact you love what Jeff is doing, what Darwin's doing, what I'm doing, what Obsidian is doing, then show it in showing up, supporting, sharing, clicking that like button, subscribing, and also donating to the things that we're doing, and also participating in the things that you say that you want more of. Because if we don't have the conclave, then you won't have the opportunity to come together. And I ain't coming to Vegas to take no losses. I'm just not. I don't get out at this point in my career. I don't get out of my bed unless it's worth it. And I can't speak for anybody else on this dais, but I will tell you, for me, I'm not coming to be cute. I'm not coming to be liked. I'm coming to snap necks and cash checks. And that's the mentality we have to have. Because truly, if we are about the business of our brothers and our sisters, our wives, our queens, our children, and our families, then we have to show up accordingly. And I think that this is a phenomenal show. I love everybody who has participated. I want y'all to do the things that you say that you want to do, and y'all need to show up. That's it.
Man, I appreciate that for sure. And my view is a real simple one. There's a lot of moving pieces and things that are happening simultaneously in our own lives, as well as what we're trying to address. And I agree with you. I think that, there's a whole host of things that make sense. And you're right that by default, if you're going to be more honest and objective, you're going to have a smaller audience. So, we got to make the best of the direction that we're all choosing as individuals, which means not telling women always what they want to hear. Listen, people, when I first came out, I was like, oh, you trying to be Kevin Samuels? I don't even do call-in shows like that. And my lens is like, I don't like arguing with women. So I'm costing myself money by not talking to women who want to just argue left and right. So I've already made certain choices and decisions that relates to that. But listen, man, for the people who are supporting in the various different ways, we absolutely appreciate you guys. Can't get enough of the comments and the feedback and the recommendations on who y'all want. But the shares, the hypes, the likes, and just letting more and more people know is always a great way to kind of show support. Obviously, for the Black Men's Conclave, feel free to click on the links that were posted in the chat. And hopefully soon we'll be announcing if that's good to go, so we can announce the location, the actual place where it'll be at, the dates and the times. And I'm pretty positive that most people would plan on actually purchasing when they have that information. I know I would. So I'm sure that once we have that information and actually have it on a poster, it'll make more sense for more people to probably fully buy in. So we're going to work on that on our end, and try to have that solidified pretty quickly. But listen, man, it's already 2.5 hours going, so we're going to kind of close out and read a couple of super chats to kind of close things out. But thanks everybody that tuned in and watched this and supported us for sure. We'll let you know pretty soon what our topic is next week, and also additional guests that's been going to be getting lined up over the next few weeks for sure. So Blue Socks, thank you for the $20. A great show. Salute to Dr. Curry. My guy, Micah Miles, thank you for the $5. Dr. Curry Tax. I have watched so many of your class courses during the pandemic. It was interesting what some students came to conclusion on. And and a surprise, Bruiser with the future guest. We will make sure that future guests, we got a little budget now set aside for the next we try to line up. So we're going to be working onto that. And I'm just going to tell everybody in the audience, man, make sure again that you like this, that you share it with 2, 3, 4, even 5 people, that you subscribe and follow all of our respective platforms. And thank you. We genuinely thank you guys for, you pushed us to say you wanted us to do this. And the 3 or 4 times that we've now done this, just the amount of views that I'm seeing, I can't wait to see how many people have kind of tuned in for this and, how this is going to go. Our goal is, if these keep going and we keep getting reputable guests and covering a lot of topics that we know need to be covered, to educate, to push, and also moving towards strategy and suggestions on how we're really going to be making major strides as individuals and collectively. I'm excited. So listen, fellas, thanks everybody. Thank you, fellas, for another great panel tonight. And everybody have a great evening. And we're going to talk to you. Oh, I do have an announcement to make. Yes. The lead attorney is going to be coming through on Ask a Brother podcast tomorrow evening. So, man, my first time being able to have that brother come through. So everybody who's currently watching, make sure y'all set y'all stuff in order. I'm going to switch it to public so people can see that. Do y'all have any upcoming announcements or special things happening anytime soon?
No, I don't have any, but I will say, whenever you bring the lead attorney on here, make sure you ask some really hard questions and be objective. Don't just agree with everything, because he's going to get bored. He really loves a challenge. So ask some questions that are going to make it hard for him to answer.
Noted.
Yeah,
Noted.
yeah,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Only other thing I got, last week, Wednesday, so a week ago last week, I launched Dave Anderson Morning News. We doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's been going absolutely amazingly. I am
9
having
a.m.
the 9 a.m. 9 a.m. I'm having the time of my life.
Mhm.
I'm absolutely loving this. It's a lot easier than going on the road for 11 months.
Yeah.
Just here to tell you, I love it. So make sure you guys tune in. If there's people you want me to talk to and things that y'all want me to do, just please feel free to reach out. But I'm extremely excited about everything when it comes to Dave Anderson Morning News, aka
I always wanted to know, like, I know you're going to be doing morning news, but if you ever get the time to open up a lane of content for like maybe midday or something, but I know you might be working, and where you're actually going over things that's happening in film and movie and stuff like that, even comics and stuff. I would love to be a part of that conversation just to stay updated on stuff like, actors are boycotting, writers are not, showing up because of AI is taking, like any of that stuff that got to do with film and movie and comic books or anything like that. Let me know when you do that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's right here on YouTube. Y'all can find it at the Business Bully. It's right here. Make sure y'all subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, you're missing out. Also, just real quick, I did an amazing show on Monday because everybody was asking me about the Breakfast Club thing. So it's the last time I'm ever talking about it. So y'all can go through all of that, including all the private stuff. So it's there. We got some other stuff coming up, and then the replays and the actual audio is going to be on iHeart and wherever you listen to podcasts. So definitely make sure y'all come through.
Awesome.
As per usual, the Gospel of St. Kevin Samuels. You can get your copy, 100 signed, 75 unsigned, to my Cash App. $ Obsidian Radio. The Black Manosphere Conclave going down in Vegas. Check us out, blackmanosphere.com. I'm going to see if I can try to get Dr. Tommy Curry to come on out to be a speaker at the conclave. I've been wanting to get Dr. Tia Johnson, but he had some personal affairs to take care of the past few years. But maybe I can get maybe we can see if we can get Dr. Tommy J. Curry out there and get some copies of The Man Not Some Brothers, because we basically have our own pop-up bookshop. It's not just me, it's Andre Spence. This year is going to be Dave. Jeff's got a book getting ready to drop. So we sell more books in a weekend than certain bookstores. And I think, Jeff, you know who I'm talking about. And I think, Dave, you know who I'm talking about. That's on Germantown Avenue, and I won't say anything else. We sell more books in a weekend than they do a whole month. And black men buying books.
Yeah. No, please. I'm just, black men buying books is a beautiful thing. I can't wait. I'm gonna just be shipping the books to where it is in Vegas. That way I ain't got to carry it.
I do the exact same thing. We do the same thing. Very good.
So listen, man, everybody have a great evening. Well, like we said, we'll let y'all know announcements on what our next episodes and when our next lineup of guests is going to be coming through. But thank you, everybody, for the genuine support. We started this a month ago, and y'all have been doing nothing but literally showing up, sharing it, and showing love. We ask that you do the same with this episode. And listen, man, all we're going to say is you never know what we're going to cover, and you never know who we're going to have on. So always be on the lookout and have a good evening. And we're going to talk to y'all on the other side.